As a child, he read countless stories about adventurers. The more he read, the more he wanted to become an adventurer. City of Magic. Lecturer. Institute of Magic. The woman asks him again about the adventurer. She asks him about what he just got in and reassures him, telling him not to worry, because with his grades, he definitely won't be expelled. Several years later, someone shouts and asks the protagonist about the adventurer and says that now is not the time for jokes. The same woman says that he can become anyone, a court magician or a professor. He must decide before graduation. The boy says he will become an adventurer. The woman says it is impossible. He asks the reason and says that he is free to decide what to do. The woman addresses him as William and asks if he understands the situation he is in now. He has perfect grades. He is the hope of the entire institute. She also asks if he knows that he is the best student among his graduates. She can't believe that someone so brilliant ends up as an adventurer. Not only will it damage the reputation of the institute, but she will also be punished later. The guy watches this silently. In his mind, he agrees with her. He learned a lot at the institute, and at least they treated him well. He shouldn't harm the reputation of the institute. He says that he understood, and in that case he won't become anything. He says that William Glenford graduated from college and has not yet decided on his future. The woman does not understand what he is talking about and exclaims questioningly. He tells her that from now on she must pretend that everything is so that it will become true. The woman tries to stop William, but he leaves, saying that this way the reputation of the institute will remain intact. The woman calls him by name and then shouts his first and last name. That's how he graduated from the institute. Atlantia City. Adventurers Guild. A cute girl smiles and thanks him for registering. The guy thanks her too and holds a badge. She tells him that he will start as an F-rank adventurer and encourages him to work hard to raise his rank. The protagonist agrees with her and thanks her. He always had a penchant for adventure. He clutches the badge in his hand and secretly rejoices that he has finally become an adventurer. However, this is only the beginning, because in order to proudly call himself a professional adventurer, he must accumulate achievements and also raise his rank. He is looking for a stand with tasks. He looks at it and notices the quest to exterminate goblins. He notes that this is a typical quest for newbies, or so he heard. However, the quest rank is E. He understands that a loner of his rank cannot accept this quest, because according to the guild rules, a team of at least 4 people is needed. Suddenly, someone approaches him and asks if he is looking for a team. He turns around but sees no one. Someone from below shouts that he is here. He looks down and exclaims questioningly. It turns out to be a cute catgirl. She waves at him and introduces herself as Me. She says that if she's not mistaken, he's an F-rank adventurer. Me asks if she's right. The protagonist notices that she is very small. But then he refutes his assumption and realizes that she is a beastman, which means she looks younger than her age, but she is really small. He thinks to himself about what Zelenia has in this, and now he wants to try something. William reaches for her head. The girl does not understand what he is doing. He strokes her head and tells her that this is no place for little girls to play. Me says that he is wrong and that she is a fully formed woman. He becomes serious and asks her to relax because it was a joke. He says that a good adventurer should be able to tell a good joke. He may still lack a lot, but experience is the most important thing. The girl says he's a complete idiot. The guy asks if she said anything about a team. Me confirms his words and says they have a team of 3 F-rank people. He says he understands her and realizes they're missing one person. The girl asks if he'll join their team. The guy agrees and asks him to introduce him to the other 2. Me agrees. He says that if he is not mistaken, then she is a thief. The girl answers positively and assumes that he is a magician. The boy says she's right. The girl says the other 2 are a warrior and a priest. The protagonist says he understands and calls it a competent team composition. In his mind, he imagines an old tenant and a strong warrior. He has heard that the vast majority of adventurers are men and assumes that Me is like a mascot for the team. He also imagines a fight over a woman in his head and calls it typical. The girl goes forward and the main character follows her. The pretty girl says that Mia has done a good job and asks if this is their candidate. The protagonist sees 2 beautiful girls in front of him. He is very surprised. Mi says that it is him and addresses her as Saki. The girl also asks if she liked his appearance. She agrees with her and says he looks cool, and then asks him what his hobbies are. She immediately stops and says this is not a marriage interview. She asks why she brought such a handsome guy. Mia Prophet and I don't worry and says he's a magician. Saki says that's great. The second girl says that she is sorry because they are not familiar with manners and asks what is wrong. The main character is very surprised and wonders if the data about most of the male adventurers was a lie. He answers in the negative and says that he was just surprised, but asks them to forget about it. He says that he was told that there is a priest and a fighter on the team. He assumes that this is not entirely true, because her class is called samurai. The girl blossoms before his eyes. She exclaims enthusiastically and says that she is happy that he has heard about him. The second girl says that now that she mentions it, it is. The first girl introduces herself as Saki. He calls himself William. The second girl says that she is Cirilla. The protagonist says that it is nice to meet him. So the four of them formed a team and set off to complete the mission with the goblins. Saki notices two guards. She turns to Mia and asks her if she can knock them out quietly. The girl answers uncertainly and assumes that she can't do both. She asks William if he can. He thinks to himself that a silent method is needed and says that will do. He says that he will put them to sleep first and the rest will be up to them. Saki is surprised and asks what he is saying. Cirilla is also surprised. The protagonist begins to cast a spell to put them to sleep. However, Cirilla suddenly grabs his staff. She asks what he is doing. The protagonist does not understand her actions. The staff begins to glow. The protagonist does not have time to say a word as the spell begins to spread. A horse-drawn carriage is driving nearby. Someone tells its owner that the carriage is incredibly comfortable. The man laughs and says that it should be so, because it was specially ordered for him for 1,000 gold coins. The boy says that he is really happy to be able to drive such a luxurious carriage. The man laughs and says that if he wants, he can go even faster. The boy says he understands him. Suddenly, the man in the carriage starts to fall, saying that Atlatia is right there. The young man yawns. The horse also starts to fall asleep. Suddenly, the carriage goes off the road and crashes. All three are asleep. The whole city fell asleep. Goblins too. The young man says he has lost control. His three partners are also asleep. Even if he has weakened his defenses, losing control is a serious mistake. He is lucky that it was just a dream. As an adventurer, he still has much to learn. He starts to wake up Saki. William asks her to wake up. The girl begins to come to her senses. She suddenly jumps up and asks what happened. He explains to her that he used sleep and asks if she can end the monsters. Saki tells him seriously that anyone who kills their opponent while he is defenseless has no right to be called a samurai. This is unexpected for the protagonist. He thinks that this is her pride as a warrior. He says that he understands this and asks to wake Cirilla. The girl agrees. William himself tries to wake Mia. After some time, Mia and Cirilla return. Cirilla says that they took care of those two monsters. Blood drips from her staff. He turns to the priestess and wants to ask her about what happened. However, the girl interrupts him and says that she also has questions. She says that he does things without even warning them and asks him what would have happened if they had made a mistake. She accuses him of trying to put everyone in danger. He wonders to himself that the mistake is considered using sleep magic on goblins. However, he stops himself and says that she is right about something. No matter how small the chance of failure, inattention can be deadly. He read something like that in the records of adventurers. The protagonist asks her for forgiveness. Cirilla Diumina, however, accepts his apology and says that he understands everything well. Let's say that everything she said is true and she is right. She says that when things turned out like this, she feels stupid and ashamed. The hero says that no matter how low the chances were, he shouldn't have been so arrogant. The girl says that these are useless words because he is arrogant. Cirilla sighs heavily and says that when people think differently, it can be hard. Saki is also a little embarrassed. The protagonist notices Mia's action. He realizes that she is listening to sounds. William casts another magic eye. He sends this spell through Mia. However, at first the girl's ear twitches, and then she herself stands up. Mia turns her head from side to side. The protagonist is surprised, because it should be invisible. Apparently, her instinct is too good. He turns to her, but Cirilla interrupts him. She asks her what's there. The girl replies that there are no sounds of footsteps nearby, and the cave may be quite deep. The tenant says that's good, and explains that Mia will be in the vanguard. Then William, her and Saki will go. She also says that the goblins might return from outside, so samurai should stand guard. The girl says that she understood her. The protagonist understands that this is what knowledge and skills actually look like. Cirilla's knowledge and Mia's skill. He's yet to see Saki's abilities, but this is no ordinary team, and besides, he can't get something out of his head. He wonders if this is some special trait of beastmen. Kuzuya doesn't understand what this impulse is. Mi wags her tail. The boy trembles and reaches for the girl's head, thinking to himself that he wants to stroke her head. The girl turns around and says that there are 5 goblins ahead. The protagonist turns away and says that he is using sleep and that before casting the spells, he will release the staff. This will be the signal. Before that, it was empty. The protagonist casts a sleep spell again, having lowered his staff. Saki runs forward with a katana. However, all the goblins fall asleep. She is surprised that they have fallen asleep too. Cirilla says that she is right, and they will take care of them. She thinks to herself that it's just luck, because sleep affects a limited area. Saki fidgets a little because she feels awkward. There is silence between her and William. She turns to him and asks for forgiveness for what happened. She says that saying unfounded things like samurai can't do it is selfish, and she knows it. The hero realizes that this was what was bothering her. The girl says that if she backs down from this, she won't be able to swing her sword proudly. William tells her not to worry, and if this is how it is, then they just need to get used to it. The girl blushes. He thinks that a lot can happen while he's in the room. The girl grabs his hand and says that since he accepted it so easily and immediately, he's a great guy. She asks if she can call him William, to which he responds positively. Cirilla says that they are finished and the group can move on. The samurai smiles and tells him to wait a little, because as soon as he gets the chance, he will see her in all her glory. The guy says he's waiting for this. The girl turns to Will. He asks her the reasons for her appeal. She says she doesn't know how to express herself, but she doesn't understand what's going on here. He says he used a sleep spell, like before. The girl asks what will happen in that case. She cries out dejectedly that at this rate she will not have a chance to shine. The guy says it is less risky. Cirilla turns to the guy and asks if she was wrong. After all, she assumed that the spell should not be so large scale. The protagonist asks what she means. Mi asks to let her explain that if the dream Magnum uses on the crowd works on 1 or 2 targets, he has already achieved great success. The guy says that he now understands, and that as far as he knows, magicians who become adventurers are usually excluded from the institution of law, so their abilities can be considered the norm. The protagonist says that if we talk about an experienced magician, then it is normal for a spell to show such power. Cirilla turns to William and asks who he is. William. They answer that he studied at the Institute of Witchcraft. The girl says that she can see it anyway, since a self-taught person cannot reach such a level, but she does not have it. She asks if he is a magician. At first the guy is silent, and then says that now he understands what exactly she meant. It's wrong, even if it's a little bit. Since he can cast spells, everyone has the title of a mage. He admits that he bears the title of sorcerer. Cirilla and Mi are surprised and ask him again. They ask him why he is an adventurer at all, because with the title of sorcerer, he can become anyone. The protagonist remembers the woman's words that he can become anyone. Saki intervenes in the conversation and tells them to wait, because she does not understand what they are talking about, and wonders who the sorcerers are. Cirilla says that, of course, if compared to a tenant, then it is equivalent to a high tenant, they can even become one. A high tenant is a high-ranking person, and sometimes the head of the temple. The protagonist is silent. Saki says that if he can become anyone, then a king too. Cirilla replies negatively and says that she does not think that is possible, but someone like a court magician is quite possible. Let's say that he can become whoever he wants, then there are no problems with him becoming an adventurer. Cirilla says that he is right and is changing. The protagonist calls everyone to move on. Mia asks William to wait, because the path has become so difficult that she cannot choose the right path. The guy apologizes to her and says that he completely forgot to tell her that the left and right paths lead to a dead end. Mia looks at him in surprise. The mage says that he is still researching the way forward, but there were no other ways either. The other girls are also very surprised. He starts drawing a map of the cave on the ground and says that the general appearance of the cave looks something like this. He asks them what happened. Saki asks how he knows the way. William explains to them that when he entered the cave, he used the magic eye spell. This is visual information. The spell creates an invisible eye that allows you to see everything in the field of view of the eye. However, it moves at walking speed. The girls are still amazed. The girl is upset that she has nothing to do now. The boy replies in the negative and says that he does not detect a trap and does not notice reinforcements outside. He adds that this is something only Mia can do. The girl says she understands. In her mind, she thinks of traps and reinforcements. Suddenly, the girl notices something. Saki says that all this precaution was in vain, so it's disappointing. Mia says she understands, but advises against relaxing. She turns to Cirilla with a question and asks if the goblins set traps. She replies that maybe small pits or setting simple traps are possible for them too, but overall, they are not very clever. Mie hands her a trap and tells her to take a look because it looks like this goblin did it. This trap is like a trap for catching prey, and it is far from simple. The girl says that it is impossible and is surprised that there is someone so advanced here. Suddenly, the hive understands everything and says that everything seems to be as Cirilla thought. She suggests that he has found the end of the cave. The protagonist answers positively and says that at the end there is a goblin mage and a goblin lord. The priestess is surprised that there are two of them, and the girl asks how they can be so unlucky. Saki turns to them and asks who these mage and lord are that they are talking about. The goblin mage is able to use spells similar to human spells. The goblin lord is many times stronger and smarter than normal goblins. Cirilla tells her about their fighting strength. The samurai asks if they are bosses anyway. The priestess answers yes. This pleases Saki. She says that it is no longer an E-rank quest, but it is not like they cannot defeat them. The samurai says that since it's a boss fight, she'll finally be able to do something. Let's think about how she's overconfident, since she's going up against a lord and a mage. He wonders if she's taking them lightly. Cirilla turns to him and says that there is no need to worry about the girl. Mie says that it may not seem like it, but she is really strong. The girl is even sure that he will be surprised. He looks at her and thinks that if she is as strong as they say, then this is getting interesting. In that case, he wants to change plans, and knowing her ability levels will be important when making decisions in the future. She answers positively and says that if she has nothing to do, she considers herself useless. The protagonist says that this is great, and in the next battle the Lord stays with her. She must show what she is capable of. The girl laughs and asks what he's talking about, since he sounds like he's going to put everyone else to sleep. The guy says that was the plan. Saki thinks it's a great joke. The guy says he wasn't saying it to be funny. Mie says the moments when he tries to be funny are terrible. Cirilla understands. She asks where their enemies are. The protagonist replies that they are in the room in front of them. The girl says that this is good and urges Saki not to relax. She also tells Mia that they must deal with the mage. Cirilla suggests that the guy, since he is going to use sleep, go ahead. William says that he understands. The protagonist looks at his companions and asks if they are leaving. They look out from the corner and see goblins. The protagonist attacks them with sleep. Mia and Cirilla also attack. The latter is worried that the spell might not work on a monster who is well versed in magic. The Mii believe that the mage must be quickly disposed of. Goblin Mac is fast asleep. The girls are surprised that it worked. Saki greets the goblin and addresses him as a big boy. He growls and slowly gets up. The girl takes the katana out of its sheath. She stands up and tells them to begin. The girl starts to glow. The protagonist exclaims in surprise. The monster roars. Saki attacks sharply and hits the goblin. Blood flows from his wound. His knife flies away and his hand falls. The girl says she would like to play with him a little longer. She lunges and screams that she was told to show what she can do. Samurai cuts the monster in half. Half of his body slides and falls. The girl smirks and says that at least it was a little fun. The protagonist is surprised that she was able to defeat the Goblin Lord so easily. Based on her melee skills alone, he believes that her strength is at D rank, and maybe even C rank. The girl asks Will's opinion. He says he's surprised, and it was something. She holds out her fist to him. At first the guy doesn't understand what it means. The girl smiles at him, and William understands. He thinks to himself that this isn't so bad. They bump fists. Cirilla says the task is done. Saki is happy and says that now they are going to get their reward. City of Atlatia. Adventurers Guild. A crowd of people is indignant. A man shouts for them to find the reason, because the summer cost him 1,000 gold coins. He will make the culprit pay. Mei pushes through the crowd and says what she found out. The girl shows them the ad and says that must be the reason. Saki says it's a mass sleepover, and the cause is still unknown. She also notes that the entire city is asleep. William remains silent. Cirilla says that during the afternoon, almost all the villagers fell asleep at the same time. She is interested in the reasons for this. However, this task is not their rank, although she is curious. The protagonist remains silent, and then suggests that it may have been a sleep spell that went out of control. Cirilla says that's impossible, because it couldn't have gotten this far. Saki calls him a funny guy. Mei points out that this time the joke was good. Let's say that it's not a joke at all. Suddenly, the protagonist notices that the girl brought 2 sheets of paper. He asks her what is behind. The girl says that she found an interesting task for them. She shows the sheet of paper with the task. Cirilla says the location is a village that takes half a day to walk to. Meanwhile, in this very village, houses are destroyed, people are killed, someone asks why. The girl repeats her question once more. The girl's spirit burns. She screams in anger that this is unforgivable. At the Adventurers Guild, Cirilla says that it seems that no one has been able to find out the truth about the dream incident. The main characters in the background are very downcast. He remains silent and remembers the registrar's words that a sleep spell that got out of control is nonsense, and she is very busy and urges him not to joke. Mei says she went and took the test. Saki is happy about it and says it's time to go. The other adventurers whisper behind her. One of the men asks why the main character is in their team. The second one says that he really wanted to be in this group. The guy listens to them silently. The girls leave. The boy turns around and looks at them. He thinks that even though they are in different classes, considering their appearance, he thinks that calling them beauties is not an exaggeration. So even if they had one less person, they would have found someone. The guy stops and asks the girl why she invited him. Mei asks if he means an invitation to join the group. Saki says it's because he's F rank. The guy asks if it has to be F rank, since he's sure there are a lot of people who would like to join them. Satsuki is surprised. She answers negatively. The girl says she doesn't care how strong they are, because she would never team up with guys who look at women like that. She notes that there were no other adventurers. The protagonist is silent. Mei replies that William is not like that. The protagonist understands their difference in priorities. Adventures are more important to them than their personal lives. Saki says that she does not quite understand, but she thinks that they are very lucky to have William. She hits him with all her strength. He crashes into the wall and slides down. The men are shocked. Cirilla asks the girl what she's doing. The man who was chatting before says that his current group isn't that bad either. She agrees with him. The girl apologizes to the main character and says that she didn't notice how she used the aura. The guy says that he guessed that she could use the aura. Cirilla wants to heal him. The guy nods. William replies that he saw it during the extermination of the goblins. Mei is surprised that the aura can be seen. The protagonist says that it can, but it depends on the case and its density. The girl says that she understands and remains silent. She turns to William and asks if he has a second. She asks him to tell her more about the aura. Sachi says she has explained it to her several times already. Mei says that Saki's explanation is difficult to understand. The girl says that she already said that she collects her aura where she wants to use it, and then directs it, let's say, at night. The girl lifts her knee and pushes the earth away with all her might, creating a crater around her. She says it's easy. Mei says she doesn't understand anything. Cirilla supports her. William is surprised. Mei doesn't understand what it means to collect and where this aura should come from. The aura is inside them all. The girl imagines in her head that an aura circulates inside people. The protagonist says that unlike mana, the energy consumed when using magic, the aura is already inside and circulates throughout the body. He says that in this way he does not collect something from the outside that uses what is inside himself. He says that Saki probably meant by collecting exactly to take the aura of her body and move it to another place. Cirilla says that it's a good thing that she doesn't end up as a mother. Mei says that it was easier to understand. Instead of using it, it's more like control. Saki asks how it is. Mei wonders why she is asking that. They walk down the stairs. The girl says that the aura is just amazing and she wants to learn how to use it soon. The guy asks her if it's okay if she can't use it yet. He also says that he heard that it's an indispensable skill for high-ranking fighters, but there's still F ranks, so he doesn't see the point in rushing it. The girl frowns and remains silent. Mi agrees and says that Saki is simply abnormal. The protagonist looks at her questioningly. The girl asks what they will do all this time. Mi says that this is their whole Saki. Cirilla says that they are going to destroy the undead. She says that the village was suddenly destroyed, causing many zombies to appear, so they are going to get rid of them. The second girl asks about the reason for this. Cirilla says there are several reasons for the appearance of the undead. In rare cases, a corpse can turn into an undead if a proper burial is not performed. Another possibility is a dark priest or mage using forbidden magic. The guy says that it matches what he knows. After all, there are many theories about the conditions for the appearance of the undead. Naturally. The second girl says that she does not understand them and it is too complicated. She says that in the end, they have no idea what the reason is. Cirilla confirms her words. The protagonist says that in any case, they just have to remember that there might be a dark priest or mage ahead. The girl imagines the dark priest in her head, laughing. She asks how strong these zombies might be, and explains that even goblins are stronger because they are monsters of the first rank, and goblins are N. The girl is surprised that they are so weak. Mi says that the problem is in their numbers, and if the whole village turned into zombies, there could be more than 100 of them. The second girl says that when there are many of them, they can become a real threat if you can't fight them all off. Saki is a little embarrassed. The girl imagines herself being surrounded by a crowd of zombies. The girl says that Will's sleep spell will come in handy. However, he says that sleep won't work on the undead, and then adds that the undead are a bad opponent for mages and residents. Destroying the undead is Ciri's area of expertise. The girl agrees with him. He could say that if there are more than 100 of them, then she will need help. The guy says he'll think of something. Saki urges her not to worry, because she's here too, and it'll be easy. Mia remains silent and then turns to Saki and urges her to listen to William and Cirilla. The girl hugs the girl and says that she will be useful once the battle begins, since she uses her aura. Mi hits her head with her tail. The girl gets angry. Saki, smiling, uses aura, grabs her, and says that she's played too much. Mi screams that it's cheating because she's using aura again. The girl tries to get out. Cirilla and William watch this. The girl asks what they are doing and encourages them to move on. She looks at the protagonist and, laughing, says that at least today she will be able to brag a little. The girl smiles. The main characters burn the undead with a spell. The girls are too surprised by this. The undead are set on fire alive. Cirilla looks at this with resignation. She says she thinks she can understand Saki now. The girl asks if she sees Mary. She says it's becoming absurd. Mii says there will be a fourth shot now. The main characters prepare a new spell and shoot it. The undead burn. From afar, a ghost on top of the building watches this. The girl frowns. Saki turns to Mia and asks if there's anything they can do. The girl says that hating is fighting zombies, so that's fine. The girl notices that she's still in a bad mood. Mia says that even she has bad days. Cirilla asks the protagonist if there will be a fifth shot. He says that the fireball uses a lot of mana and a fifth shot is possible, but he would like to save mana. He says that zombies are really bad opponents for mages. The girl agrees with him, says that they trust the rest. Cirilla agrees. Saki supports her friend and encourages her to do it. Mia and William stand silently and then look at each other. The girl says she'll just get in their way, because even if she slits their throats or stabs their hearts, they still don't die. And she's had enough. He watches the girls and says he saw Sokka's skills last time. Mi says that she has undergone basic training, so considering only pure combat power, she is on the same level as her. However, the girl has not seen her fight the undead yet. Cirilla casts a spell and, raising her staff, shouts for the undead to leave. A bright light shines and the zombies are destroyed. The protagonist says that it was something, since to exorcise that many undead, she must be quite experienced. Mi says that she understands him. Let's say that her decision is also impeccable. After all, knowing that this minimizes all possible risks, she leaves the rest to Saki. Mi says she's a little jealous. The girl is sad. The boy doesn't understand what she's talking about. She explains to him that her job is easy, so she doesn't get any thanks, even if it looks like she's slacking off. The main characters didn't expect this. All that impressed him from the beginning was Mia's work as a thief. Of course, she won't know about it, since he never said it in words. You tell them that they will highly appreciate her work. He says that she noticed his magic eye. The girl blushes and starts wagging her tail. He praises her ability to notice traps and her keen hearing. The guy says that she is experienced. He also says that she doesn't complain about her routine or dirty work and shows initiative. The girl gets embarrassed and wags her tail even more. The guy says that she does her part to make sure everything goes smoothly. He asks what's wrong. The girl says nothing. She blushes deeply and her tail won't stop wagging from side to side. Down below, the girl shouts that they're done. Mi suggests that they quickly pick up what they need to complete the quest. Saki hums something under her breath. Cirilla asks the girl if it is good enough. She answers positively. Something flies past them unnoticed. Mi remembers how she hit Saki in the face with her tail. It's something rushing towards Saki. Mi turns around and talks to her friend about what happened earlier. Saki punches her in the face with all her might. The girl flies away. Cirilla does not understand what is happening and calls Mia. The guy is also surprised. Saki twitches, asks what it is. The ghost of the girl is visible behind Saki. The samurai starts laughing. She says that this is amazing and that this girl's body is just incredible. Cirilla heals Mia. She calls Saki by name. She looks at her with horror. The girl says with a smile on her face that now she can kill everyone. Saki laughs loudly. She asks them with a Lyceum smile to wait because she is coming to kill them. William casts a sleep spell and the girl falls. He tells Mia to bring a rope because they have to tie her up. The girl agrees. The girl is successfully tied up. The ghost is silent. Cirilla says that perhaps she is the ghost that lived in this village. The girl confirms this. William says he understands that their friend's body has been taken over. Mia asks what he should do now. Cirilla says that if they leave regret or achieve their goals, their souls will be cleansed and they will disappear. The girl mumbles unrelated words about regret, purpose, anger, and hatred. She says she will kill them all because she has to. Cirilla asks what happened. William says it's impossible. She angrily yells at him, asking the reason, and then asks him what he means to say they did to deserve this. Cirilla calls for calming down first and suggests that the ghost first tell them what happened. Mia calls William cruel. He does not understand what she is talking about. The girl says that the bandits are located near their village. And then they treated all the women badly and killed them all. She says they are no different from monsters. She says she will take revenge on them. Mia and Cirilla look at William. The ghost asks if he will let her go. The protagonist says they can't do that. The other two girls are surprised by his lack of feeling. The ghost calls for her not to fool her and asks if they are in cahoots with the bandits. Mi says that she and the others are not bandits. Cirilla grabs the guy by the lapels and addresses him by name. He says that the only thing that matters to them is the owner of this body. He explains that no matter how strong Saki is, these bandits destroyed a village with a population of over 100 people, and if there are experienced people among them, then all the odds are against the girl. The ghost says that he can take them with him. However, William says that they cannot allow that to happen. After all, they cannot allow Saki to die in such a reckless manner. The girl repeats his words about a reckless death. She asks what she should do in that case. After all, she will simply disappear without taking revenge. Cirilla asks her name. The girl introduces herself as Philia. The main character had doubts about contacting the ghost, but it seems that she is ready to listen to them and this is good. He turns to the girl and says that if she can prepare a reasonable reward, she can make a request. The ghost doesn't understand what he's talking about. William says they're adventurers. Saki wakes up somewhere. Cirilla is surprised that she has become possessed by a ghost. Mi says that it is because Saki is always careless. The girl wonders if she is really that careless. She twists and turns from the side and says that it is very strange that her body moves on its own. She makes the assumption that she is possessed. The girl says she's sorry. The moment she realized her goals could be achieved, she calmed down. He wonders if ghosts can be so collected. Cirilla notices the church. The girl asks if they can wait a little and says she wants to at least pray for the village. The guy says he doesn't mind. Saki remembers that her friend is a priest and make an assumption that this will have some effect. However, she cannot be sure of it. Philia thanks her. Mi says that she is coming too. Saki realizes that they cannot hear her voice. Philia asks her if she has just noticed it. William asks if they are close. The girl answers positively and says that the gold is buried in the village elder's garden. He repeats her words and suggests that perhaps she is his daughter. She replies in the negative and says that she has been getting along with his only son since childhood. Saki sees the girl's memories, in which "what kind of guy are you" turns to Philia, and tells her not to forget what's at the base of this tree in case something happens to it. The girl asks if she can talk about this, and the young man asks the reason. The girl says that tomorrow they will be together. An image from her wedding pops up in her memories. Saki, make a guess that this is a memory of a ghost. Philia says that on that day the protagonist suggests that she listen to Cyrilla's prayer. Perhaps she will feel better. The girl says that she would not like to go into the church. Cyrilla stops in her tracks and shakes. The Mies ask her what's wrong. The girl notices a corpse that has not turned into a zombie. Saki sees memories of bandits breaking into a church during a wedding ceremony. All the people are panicking and screaming. The guy, says Phil, runs away from here. He is killed with an axe. The girl is crying. The bandit grins and says that he has finally found a good woman. Saki is very angry. Philia digs a place for a tree. Cyrilla make an offer that the bride in the church was Philia. She says it makes her very angry, so much so that she goes crazy. The guy says that justice is something relative. The girl gets angry at him. Even these bandits can be victims of circumstance. He says that, wanting to judge the bandits as evil, he talks about this feeling, then he stops and asks her to forget about it. The girl says she will keep it in mind. The bag turns out to contain gold. Mi says that the 100 gold coins are indeed here. Cyrilla says that all the requirements have been met. William says that the goal is to infiltrate and eliminate all the bandits, and the reward for doing so is 100 gold coins. He asks if everyone agrees to accept Philia's request. Cyrilla says she has no problem punishing people who do something like that. Mi says they need to get Sokka's body back. Philia is a little embarrassed and apologizes. Saki watches this silently and then says that she just wants to let you know that since she is also a member of the group, she also accepts her request. Saki tells her not to worry about her body, as she is just lending it to her for a little while. So she encourages Philia. The girl starts crying and still thanks them all. The bandit's house. The guard is sleeping. The Mies above are preparing to attack. The girl kills him. The other 3 adventurers follow her. Cyrilla notes that it is quite a large mansion, and they use it as a hideout. Philia looks at the dead bandit in horror. Mi listens and says that she can hear several people snoring near the entrance, but it is difficult to tell if anyone will wake up. The girl says that it will be bad if there is someone experienced among them. She turns to Will and asks if he can use the magic eye spell that he used during the quest with the goblins. William says they use translucence. Although it uses a lot of mana, it's worth it. Mi thinks about sneaking a peek. Cyrilla asks him what kind of spell it is. The guy explains that it's a spell that allows him to see through obstacles and into the entire mansion within reach. The girls are again surprised by his abilities. They are silent. The protagonist asks them what is the matter. Cyrilla says that nothing, and Mia says that she has nothing more to say. They go inside. Inside, many bandits are sleeping. The protagonist apologizes and asks them to do everything as usual. Philia twitches with anger. The bandits are sleeping. Cyrilla kills with a staff. Mi deals with enemies with a knife. Philia walks past William. He thinks to himself that they should continue at the same pace and, most importantly, do everything quietly. The girl behind him draws her katana from its sheath and swings it at the sleeping man. Cyrilla and Mia look at her in surprise. She screams in rage for him to die. The girl stabs the bandit with a katana. He exclaims questioningly. The protagonist looks at this. Cyrilla also exclaims questioningly. Philia calls him a bad man and screams at him to die. She stabs him several times. The other bandits begin to come to their senses. One of them asks what it is. The main characters are casting some kind of spell. The bandit doesn't understand what's going on. Cyrilla is trying to say something, but she can't. She thinks to herself what's wrong with her voice, because she can't hear anything. Mi notices the bandits, who stand up. She jumps over him and kills him. The main characters think that they fought from a spacious room, and that's good. He also notes that there are no reinforcements. Cyrilla grabs him and tries to ask with gestures what happened. He thinks that they need to get out of the magic zone. In a secluded corner, Cyrilla tells Philia that she has compromised their secrecy. However, the girl does not hear her. She only says that she must kill them all. Cyrilla says that now they can only cleanse her. The Mias ask if they can really do that. The priestess says that her magic doesn't seem to work, but maybe if we take her to the temple in the city it will work. The ghost repeats the words of purification. Behind her, inside her, Saki screams her name. Philia speaks of her regrets and that everything is purified. The samurai tries to reach her again, screaming her name. She says that she finally heard her voice. The girl urges her to pull herself together because she was going to take revenge. Saki also says that everything will be fine. Philia calls her by name. The girl says that with her body everything will go bang and boom. Mia says that she said something like Saki. Cirilla says that they really should clean her up. Philia asks Saki out loud what she means by bang and boom. The protagonist assumes that she is talking to Saki. They call her. The girl answers and says she's very sorry. The girls are surprised. The girl says it was just there. Mii suggests that Saki did a good job. Cirilla says the mood is, of course, amazing. Philia says she's fine. The guy thinks to himself that she still seems a little out of it, but the girl inside has her under control. Cirilla and Mia open the door ahead. Saki asks the girl what her boyfriend was like. Philia asks why she is interested in this now. The samurai is surprised and says that girls seem to like to whisper about love and such. The girl is surprised that it is in this situation. Cirilla and Mii kill the bandits. Saki says she's just curious about what he was like. The girl doesn't answer right away. She looks at William and says that he was a bit like him. Saki blushes and asks her not to look at him so strangely because it makes her feel strange. Philia blushes too and says that she is wrong. The girl tries to explain that he was more like that and says that she knows. The protagonist says that Saki can give you a headache and that she works well. Mii says that he said it well. He urges them to hurry and says that this must be the last room. Philia says that since this is the last room, she asks to be allowed to go on. William thinks to himself that he needs to get rid of Philia's old attachment. After all, the leader and his subordinates are waiting for them in the last room, and their strength must be equal to Philia's, otherwise she will have difficulties. He asks her to wait a second and says that he will now enhance her physical abilities. She agrees. Cirilla says that she will bless her, and this will help her calm down a little. The girl begins to glow a little. Cirilla says that everything is fine and encourages everyone to move on. William interrupts her and says that it is not all over yet. The priestess agrees. They wait for William's spells to take effect. Cirilla says that it is time for the final battle. However, the boy again says that he needs a little more time. They wait for him again in silence. Finally, he finishes and calls everyone to move on. Cirilla angrily hits him in the back. He asks the reason for her actions and says that it really hurts. The girl replies that it was for no reason. Mia calls them a strange team. They say that in any case, the rest is up to Philia and she should move forward. The girl agrees and says that she is quick. She quickly leaves. Cirilla sighs. They race after her. The guy says they have to catch up with her. Mii asks what's wrong with her speed, since even she has trouble keeping up with her. The guy explains that he sped her up and that it's magic that greatly increases the target's agility. They run to the place and hear the screams of bandits. Someone asks what is going on. Suddenly, a bandit falls out of the room and asks them for help. But Philia stabs him. She wonders if he's just trying to run away. Another thug swings an axe at her and yells at her to get it. The girl reflects his attack. The bandit exclaims questioningly. Cirilla and Mii are also surprised that she reflected. The protagonist explains that it is a force field. It creates a barrier, making normal physical attacks useless. The girl turns around and kills the bandit. Mary. They ask William what it is. He replies that it is the effect of the enchanted weapon. She makes a guess that he strengthens the weapon with magic. The protagonist confirms her words. From magic, the sword becomes stronger and glows. He says that if you take the power of the soul and the most effective way to use it, then achieving a balance between the three spells gives the best effect. The man screams that the woman is a demon. He calls her to stop and asks her not to kill him. He asks if she knows who is behind him. The protagonist realizes that they have support. Philia says she doesn't care, and as long as they die at her hands, she doesn't care. The bandit rushes at her with an axe, screaming. The girl also attacks and cuts him into pieces. The fight ends. Cirilla, Mii, and William look at the girl. The latter asks if she is finished. The girl is silent at first, but then says that everything is finally over. She turns to Saki and thanks her, because now she can finally follow him. The girl turns around and looks at her fiancé. She says that he has come to greet her. She runs to him and says that she is very happy. She cries and hugs him, says that she loves him. The girls look at this with relief. However, at that very moment, they turn to William and ask when he managed to get so close to Philia. Saki hugs him. The protagonist says that he did nothing and denies everything. Mi asks if it is Saki. The girl turns to her and asks if she is Mi. The girl is glad that Saki has returned. The samurai says that she has been using her aura all this time and asks her to let her rest for a while. The friend agrees. The girl asks her for forgiveness for all this. Mii says that she should apologize. Saki doesn't understand what she's talking about. The girl reminds her that she hit her with her tail. Saki laughs and realizes that she's been thinking about that all along. Mi is surprised and tells the girl that she doesn't have to apologize. The main characters notice a bundle downstairs. He opens it and reads it, surprised. Cirilla asks him what happened and what it is. William says that it is a letter containing an order stating on what date the village of Philly was to be attacked, and that every peasant was to be killed. The girls are surprised. He says the reward was considerable. Saki asks who gave such an order. William says that Count Goldart's name is on there. Cirilla asks who Count Goldart is, and wonders if there was a duke with that last name. Mi asks if the duke gave the order to the bandits. William replies that he most likely did. Cirilla cannot believe that the count is voluntarily destroying his own territories. Saki asks what's the matter. Saki is surprised that the castle is huge. She says that it is spacious and that it is cool. They are in the capital, the kingdom of Ledeburg. Mi says that this is the capital of the kingdom. Cirilla says they are right, and she feels like a country bumpkin. The girl notes that she hides it very poorly. Saki treplents her friend on the head and says that she looks like her. It will be fun. Cyril asks her to stop. The girl laughs. The priestess says that this is her first time here. Saki asks why they came to the capital. Mia is surprised that she hasn't heard it yet. The girl asks Will to explain everything. Saki. The guy explains that he contacted the Institute of Witchcraft and found out that someone was sent to the count as a wizard who works at the royal court. Her name is Alice Vermelia. He asks if she understands everything so far. Mia says that Alice is actually the one who works normally, unlike William. Saki wonders how he contacted them and assumes that the connection was through a letter. The guy takes out something and hands Samurai a mirror, but he doesn't understand. He calls her to look at it. She is surprised that it is a mirror. Suddenly, his image appears in her mirror. William asks if she can see him. The girl exclaims in surprise. The protagonist says that thanks to these special mirrors, he can communicate using magic. Mia asks if the Institute was angry when he decided to become an adventurer. But William says they'd better be angry. He remembers a conversation in his hotel room. In the mirror, they ask him, with hope, if he's tired of being an adventurer. You answer them negatively and say that you are not tired of it. Someone asks him if he remembers that the assistant's position is still free for him. The guy ignores this and turns to the professor, saying that there is something he would like to check. The man says that is good. The protagonist says that this is how he learned about Alice. Mia doesn't understand why there was this strange pause. William says that she is apparently an enfant terrible who submitted her thesis as a study on the spontaneous infection of low-grade zombies. Mi introduces her as a sweet girl who admires zombies and says they are cute. Saki introduces her as a cool girl who enjoys rocks and the undead. Cirilla eats a bun and says that magic that uses the soul of the dead is strictly forbidden. Mi looks at her in surprise. She turns to her, but she screams at her to look at these sandwiches because they are very cute. She hands over a sandwich with a teddy bear on it. The girl says she's glad she likes it. Saki, Juliana asks, what's the deal with Alice and her being undead? The protagonist tells her not to confuse things because Alice is human, they are undead. Saki says that everything is clear to her. And what does it mean? They came to the capital of Roya to cut this Alice. The girl is in a belligerent mood. The protagonist answers negatively. Cirilla asks why she is going to cut her, because first they have to find Count Goldart. Saki shouts, what does that mean? They will kill him later. The protagonist answers negatively. Mia says that trying to kill someone without even looking into it is a crime. However, Saki says that this count organized the bandits' attack on Philia's village, and this letter is proof of his crimes. Cirilla says that the problem is the letter. She hands her the food and tells her to eat it. The samurai agrees. The tenant explains that this is an order from Count Goldart for the bandits, and if they send it to the wrong person, the letter will simply be thrown away. Cirilla says that William is right, and that's why they came here. But she stops and says that it's useless, because Saki doesn't understand anything anyway. The girl really doesn't understand anything. Cirilla suggests that he will be someone influential, and says that even they have personal connections. The protagonist says that it is not that he chose this relationship. The priestess gets angry and asks what else, if he looks good, if he was skilled, and then says that he is just like a prince. The protagonist says that this man simply found himself in the position of a prince and nothing more. Cirilla exclaims questioningly. Saki asks the boy if he grew up here and says that he is a kid from a big city. Cirilla tells him to hold on. The protagonist says that he was born in the city of magic, Lecter. Cirilla asks him if he just said something about a prince. William continues to say that because of his parents' work, he stayed here until he was 13. The main characters say that they have arrived and are on the spot. There is a large castle in front of the adventurers. The girls are very surprised. The main character says something to the guard. Mie is surprised that it is indeed a castle. Saki agrees with her. The guard William said something to quickly leaves. Mia is surprised that the prince is actually going to meet them without an appointment. Cirilla says that she suddenly felt pressure. Suddenly, they hear a voice that is surprised that Will is here. The girls are amazed. There is a beautiful girl in front of them. She says that they haven't seen each other for a long time and asks how he is doing, and she wonders who these children are. The girls don't understand anything and wonder if this is the prince. The guy introduces her as Eileen Glacero. She is the princess of this country. Cirilla shakes him and asks what princess means. He says that he said about the prince's place. Mie realizes that she has been confused. Cirilla apologizes to the princess for the late reception. The girl says that she is pleased to meet him. The hero can say that Eileen was a real slop when she was younger. Cirilla asks him why he started talking about the past so abruptly. They are surprised that he didn't notice their panic at all. William says that in this yard they used wooden sticks as fake swords. Eileen says that it was a long time ago and he treated them badly. The girl says she won all the fights. He says it reminded him of those unchildish moves. He asks her if she's sure she didn't use aura back then. Saki is surprised by this. The girl laughs, agrees, and says that she learned about aura a little later. Saki is glad that she hasn't seen a person her age who can use aura for a long time. Eileen is also happy and says that she has already seen this outfit in a military book. She makes a guess that she is a swordswoman from the country of the East Samurai. Cirilla says that this will end badly. Eileen offers Saki a small duel right now. The samurai says that she just thought of it. Mie notices that the princess is a bit muscular herself. Eileen tosses her a stick and tells her to use it. The girl catches it and examines the wooden sword. Eileen grins evilly and is advised to come up with an excuse for her inevitable loss. She gives an example and, quoting the girl, says that she lost because she was not used to this weapon. Mia says it looks like a completely pointless fight. She turns to William and asks who he thinks will win. He says he doesn't want to say it, but it probably won't turn into a real fight. He also says that if they were talking about simple combat power, Satsuki would probably be a B rank. Cirilla is worried. She asks her friend if everything will be okay with her. She is worried that she will actually harm the princess. Satsuki makes a quick dash and shouts that it's good, here she is. However, Eileen is faster than her, and with a quick movement, knocks the sword out of her hands. Satsuki can't even fully comprehend what happened. The princess praises her, saying a compliment about her very fast reaction. She imagines a blade to the girl's throat. Cirilla and Mie are surprised and silent. The protagonist says that's why he told them that it most likely won't turn into a battle. Satsuki is a little scared. Eileen lowers her blade. She smiles and says that this is her victory. Eileen has outstanding skills and she is not just a princess. They are already in the building. Eileen says that she is a princess, but also a knight, as they probably already understood. Satsuki is sitting on the couch and is angry. William says he heard rumors about it. But to think that the Imperial bodyguard is not comparable to you in ability is strange. The protagonist laughs. Mie points out that she doesn't need a bodyguard. Cirilla says that the Imperial Knight. If you look at the ranks of adventurers, then approximately the rank of is. In her head, she arranges a picture of the hierarchy. She also thinks to herself that Eileen is clearly superior to Satsuki in terms of abilities. Mii says that, and not just E rank, so there was no hope. Satsuki is still angry. The protagonist remains silent, and then asks if they are E rank. Mi says that they had only completed one quest before they met him. He says that to be promoted to E rank, they must show 3 achievements in the appropriate quest. Cirilla says that his words are true and reminds him that he is still an F rank. The girl laughs at him. He tells her not to make a face like she is teasing him. Eileen asks if William is being teased because she wants to see it. Cirilla is afraid of her. She says that she would never do anything rude to Mrs. Eileen's friend. The girl is afraid of the consequences. The princess is perplexed and exclaims questioningly, saying that she is quite stubborn. The girl sits down next to the samurai and says that Satsuki is very frank. Eileen smiles and the girl gets very angry. Satsuki jumps up and runs after her. Mia says that she shouldn't use Satsuki as a battle criterion. Eileen still smiles and teases her. Satsuki points angrily at her and shouts that he definitely won't lose to her next time. Eileen sighs questioningly. The girl says that she has become so irritated because of her. Eileen is surprised when Satsuki grabs her cheeks. Cirilla exclaims in surprise and asks Satsuki what she is doing with the princess. The protagonist says that even after they saw the difference in their strength, she still honestly wants to defeat her in the next battle. He is openly amazed by this. Mia asks William if this is normal and if he is sure he can just ignore it. Satsuki lies defeated on the floor. Eileen rubs her cheek and asks why he came here again and assumes that he needs some kind of help. William answers and says that they found this paper in a hidden lair of bandits. The guy hands her a document. The girl unfolds it and starts reading. She is horrified. Eileen's father greets William. He puts his hands on his shoulders and tells him that he has grown a lot since he last saw him. William says it was not long ago. He refers to the man as Ship Andrew. Eileen stands silently behind. King, make a guess that those beauties are his teammates. Cirilla and Mia bow to the king, but Satsuki does not. The king tells them not to be so cruel. Cirilla bows her head to Satsuki. Mi says that they are standing in the king's palace before the king. The girl says that she is confused in the chain of events. Eileen turns to her father and asks him to look at the document. She hands him the paper. The king hums questioningly. He reads the document. The man addresses Eileen as a knight. The girl responds positively. The man says that he leaves it to him, and he is against them hiring people from outside. The king shouts that he will not allow these people to do whatever they want in his country. He clamps the paper down with all his anger. The king turns to William, saying that it is a good job, because if it were not for them, they would never have known the truth. He tells them to let him reward them, and that they will get as much as they need for the appropriate movement. Ellen says she's surprised that this will make her respected. Satsuki says she wants to be the one to pay this boy back in his own coin. Miyai says that they can't do anything, since he is a nobleman and they better not mess with him. Cirilla says that it would be profitable, and with that, Count Goldart will receive a proper punishment. The girl also says that Ellen and William are good friends, and she knows about it. But she is surprised that the princess believed him so easily. The princess says it's Will. There's an awkward silence in the room. The girl tries to justify herself and blushes a little. The princess says she's known him for a long time and understands that he's a pretty honest guy. The girls are very surprised and remain silent. Eileen also says that he is not the type to spread such meaningless lies. She does not understand why they are looking at her like that. The girls smirk. Cirilla finds it cute. She really wants to tease her. Eileen says that in any case, she needs to think about her mission now, because she can't come up with a plan. She also says she wants brains like William's. The guy turns to her and says she should start learning how to use people. The boy says the king gave her permission, but told her not to hire outsiders. The girl says she realized she could hire adventurers like them. Cirilla says what it means. William says he wants to hear it till the end. Satsuki is glad she can punch that guy herself. Mi says she doesn't know if she can, but they're here till the end. Eileen says that they will decide on this. The adventurers agree. The princess says that she will settle all the formalities by tomorrow. Mi thanks. Satsuki says it would be bad if there were only F ranks. Cirilla suggests using this quest as an official guild quest. Eileen says that formalizing all this is too big a problem, but they still can't do it quietly. William suggests that they might also call it misappropriation of the royal fortune. William says that she should be thanked, because if they succeed, he could advance to E rank. The girl notices that he looks happy. Suddenly, he notices something above. Eileen notices it and asks him about it. He looks there and is silent. He understands what he is talking about and answers the silent question positively. A man looks down at them from above. He notices the princess. Tam waves at him. The man bows and leaves. Satsuki asks who it is. The protagonist tells her that this man is the leader of the circle of mages. Satsuki asks who it is. Cyrilla explains that this person is at the top of the hierarchy of mages. The protagonist says that this does not mean that they should perceive him as a perfect person. He also tells them that he is not as good as he seems. The girl asks if he is sure and suggests that he meet her himself. The protagonist says that there is no need for that. Miyai is curious about what just happened. Eileen is confused at first, but then says that he is William's father. Cyrilla and Miyai are shocked. Satsuki still doesn't understand. Cyrilla asks him why he doesn't tell them such important information like this. Satsuki points out that this is the first time he has spoken badly about someone. Cyrilla says that, now that she has said it, she understands it too. Eileen tries to smooth things over and says that he is, as always, taking on too many things and asks them to look after him when they can. Mia sheepishly agrees. Cyrilla and Mia offer to keep an eye on him. Satsuki still doesn't understand anything. The protagonist asks them if they can stop looking at him like that. He is confused. Cyrilla says that they should take him to the tavern. Mi asks if he heard what Eileen said. Satsuki bids the princess farewell until tomorrow. She agrees and says that they will see each other tomorrow. Many years ago, little Eileen approaches William and invites him to play. He declines and says he wants to read the sequel. The girl asks why he is still reading a book about travel. Unexpectedly, she says that she knows what will attract him. The little princess invites him to go on an adventure. The boy closes the book with interest. Little children are walking around abandoned ruins. The girl calls Will to look and offers him to explore these ruins. He says it's just a former church. The girl asks him if he is having fun. The boy replies that if you think about it, it is fun. Eileen starts to beam with happiness. She grabs the main character by the scruff of the neck and rushes forward. The girl says that this means that they are companions in adventure. And what about Eileen calling someone? Some woman is screaming her name. William's father says that he now understands where they are. The girl is disappointed, sighs. The man tells Eileen that her teacher is waiting. She tells him that they will play again later. The boy says that next time they will definitely play again. The man turns to his son and encourages him to address Eileen correctly as Mrs. Eileen. The girl begins to deny it and says that everything is fine because they are still friends. He remembers what the girl said some time ago about them being adventure buddies. He is silent and then says that they will see each other later. The boy still calls her by her first name, as if to spite his father. He gets a little angry and calls him by his first name. Eileen agrees with him and smiles. The now grown-up girl thinks to herself that one day they will go on adventures together. However, deep down she knows that this is just a joke. The girl smiles sadly after the adventurers. The main characters go on adventures together. She says it's very sweet. Her position as a princess gets in the way of an adventure with William. They accepted the princess's mission and left the capital. The girl asks how many days have passed already. The girl next to her replies that it's only been 2 days. She says that there are no enemies and that it's boring. The third girl thinks to herself about what Cyrilla is waiting for. She agrees with her friends. She asks if anything happened. They look at the two people in front. The girl wonders what kind of relationship they have. Cyrilla says she was stupid to expect to hear something about love and other girly talk. The other one tells her that it seems like this conversation is going in 2 different directions. The girl in front says that they still don't know if he really means it. She asks about their tactics and how they should attack him. The guy says he would prefer to go head-on. He wants to enter his residence peacefully to interrogate him. Suddenly, he notices something. Eileen wonders and suggests that it is magic. He says that it is a magic circle with a spell in the middle that warns the creator of any strange movement in the world around him. The protagonist says that there are 3 of them, and all of them are clearly larger than humans. The girl assumes that the monsters are somewhere nearby. William says he can't tell for sure if they are monsters or not. My ears are twitching. She agrees and says she too feels them slowly approaching them. Saki says that his ears are as amazing as ever, although she really doesn't understand it. Cyrilla is surprised and says that he is using some very strange magic again. He says that his anxiety only gives him information when someone crosses the spell's boundary. He pets the girl and says that his abilities end there, so Mia's ears are very useful. The girl looks at him strangely. William notices that he was unconsciously petting her and says that he understood what the beastman's peculiarity is. Mia says that she does not have such a peculiarity. Cirilla wonders what kind of creatures they are if they are bigger than a man. The guy offers to take a look. He raises his staff and casts the spell, see-through. He sees 3 monsters. The guy says that these are 3 orcs and laughs. The main character tells the girls that if they do not do something now, they will encounter them. The girl says that in terms of ranks, orcs should be F-rank monsters. Saki is excited. The boy says he thinks they can just let them pass them by. Saki is outraged. The girl next to her is against it and says that if they encounter any peasants or anyone else equally powerless, they will simply kill them. She says they must destroy them right now. Saki says that finally, there is a chance to kill time and fight. She asks the girl to just be a princess and drink tea. The girl pushes her away and says that she doesn't care what she says because any monster can be a threat to her. She asks her to let her deal with it. The other girls look at them with horror. Saki pulls her back and asks what she said. Both girls are angry. Orcs are visible behind the trees. Cirilla is angry and Mia is perplexed. The main character casts spells on the orcs and makes them fall asleep. One of the monsters turns its head in different directions. It was able to free itself from the guy's spell and rushes at them with a warlike cry. Eileen says that one is still left. Satsuki says that this is her prey. She is ready to attack. However, Eilinso grabs her from behind. Saki screams at her to let her go. She screams that she thought they were alike. The second girl is horrified. Saki asks what kind of confusion she is talking about. The girl screams that she was hiding something. The second one asks if she is crying. Cyril and Neva is asked what those two are doing there. The main characters cast a spell again. He sends magic arrows at the orc. You hit the target. Mi rushes to attack and says that he will take care of those 2 sleeping ones. Cirilla is angry and silent. After a while, the girl scolds the other 2 teammates. Eileen says she doesn't want to hear anything from her and looks at her chest. She is surprised. The girl says that after all, Saki, suggests that she must be having a hard time. Cirilla asks again, apologizing and asking if they are talking about the battle. The girl says that the difference in size is very big. Cirilla still wonders if they are talking about a battle. The guy asks if he can just join in on the conversation. Mii tries to talk him out of it and tells him he better not do that. The protagonist starts to say something about the atmosphere of their conversation, but stops himself and says that now is the best time for some frivolous joke. The girl says he better not do that and tells him to leave it to her. She approaches the girl and addresses her first as princess and then as Elaine. She looks at her. The little girl says that big people have no charm. Eileen notices that Mia is flat. The girl with ears says that she should work on her own charm. Eileen thinks to herself that she is her master. She says she will do everything in her power. Mia encourages her to dedicate herself to it. Cirilla says she feels left out of this conversation. Saki laughs and reassures her, joking that even grown-ups have their problems. The young men arrived in the city of Golire. The girl next to them addresses Will. She asks his opinion on how many people should go and check Count Goldart's residence. The guy replies that it will be a peaceful conversation, so only he and Elaine could go, but he is worried about the court magician Alice. Having graduated from the Institute of Witchcraft, she is equally a wizard and will be able to use most of his spells. Cirilla points us to a mansion and asks if it is Count Goldart's residence. Eileen says it looks like it. The protagonist says he will go and check and calls the girls to wait for him here. The girl asks what about her and points to herself. Will says that this is just reconnaissance. He casts some kind of spell. Cirilla asks if he just used some kind of magic. Mi agrees and says that he used some other strange magic like he did with the orcs. The guards are standing near the gate. The protagonist approaches them. The men do not react to him. Cirilla, who is watching from the side, says that they cannot sense his presence. The Mias, who are also peeping, realize what this spell is, and note that every thief would try to get their hands on such a spell. The protagonist casts another spell of sense magic. The girls around the corner are surprised that he does it again. The guy looks out one of the windows of the building. As he thought, the alarm is on even in peaceful times like these, which means that in the central point of this dome, He casts a look-through spell and sees a beautiful girl sitting at the table. He says it is her, Alice Flamilia. Cirilla asks Mia about Alice. She thinks that she is also a sorceress. Mia thinks that the enemy has almost lured Will to their side. Their enemy is quite strong and has the rank of a wizard. Cirilla understands that this will end badly. She says that perhaps all those who graduate from the Institute of Witchcraft are a little crazy. They remember a woman who joked with an unusual thing. Suddenly, Will's silhouette appears next to the girls. He sullenly asks if he is really that strange. Cirilla and Mia perked up because they did not expect to see him so suddenly. The guy apologizes for such an unexpected appearance. He says that it is incomprehensible, because until the girls find out about him, it will not stop. Cirilla says that if the guy had not said anything, they would not have found out anything. Mia still feels the presence. It makes her feel uncomfortable. The guy suggested that the girls go back to the Frono Hotel. Cirilla is still wondering where William went this time. Mia points her finger at the guy. Suddenly, Satsuki was very surprised and asked who the girls were talking to. People who don't understand what's going on don't even realize that they were there the whole time. Mia annoyedly asks William to remove the spells. Eileen is genuinely glad that she could see William as clearly as she could in the daytime from the very beginning, perhaps because she always understood him. They ended up in Eileen's room at the hotel. The guy explains to the girl that he can recognize lies. Using this skill, you can find out which people are lying. Everyone thought that this is a scary spell. The guy reassures them that he will not use this spell on people for nothing to do. Cirilla is sure that Alice can use this spell too, so they can't lie now. Suddenly, one of the girls realizes that it's very simple. She says that they have no evil intentions. Suddenly, the girl thought about what she would do in Alice's place. Before any real conflict, she would probably run away or simply refuse to provide information. She could also invite them to her place and disappear from the face of the earth. Eileen thinks she would probably fall for that if she were the commander. The girl says that she saw Alice today at the residence. Cirilla asks if the guy looked at her with magic. Will agrees and says that he heard a few details about her appearance when he spoke with the Institute. The guy turns to Eileen. He asks her about the court wizards who serve Count Golderath. The girl shakes her head and talks only about Alice. The guy thinks it must be Alice in that case. Eileen suggests waiting for Alice to finish. Will agrees and says that it will take some time, but it is the safest way for now. In the meantime, he is going to continue thinking about tomorrow's plan. The next morning has arrived. Mia clenches her fists in front of her and asks if Will can cast an invisibility effect on her. He says that he can change the effect level to the desired level. In addition, the guy used a spell that hides the presence of a magical seal. Mia wonders. Will explains that there is a sensory magic spell to intercept it. Mia says that it is like a shower of many smells, just like that moment with the orcs. The guy notices that the girl is talking about magic arrows. Will began to explain that the higher the level of the mage, the more arrows he can shoot. Mia asked the guy to stop lecturing, and he agreed. The girl says that when she reads a book, she immediately falls asleep. Before she can finish speaking, she notices someone leaving the building. The girl points her finger and asks the guy to look away. Alice comes out of the yard. She talks to the guard and says that she is leaving for 2 or 3 hours as usual. The guards ask her to take care of herself. William and Mia realize that they have 2 or 3 hours. It seems to them that she is heading straight for them. William managed to grab the girl and run. William approaches Mia and asks if he can leave surveillance on her. The girl looked at the guy angrily and asked if he was making fun of her. The guy apologized and wanted to finish, but Mia didn't let him do it. She went to follow Alice. The girl talks about telepathy. This is the ability to hear only your own thoughts. Cirilla thinks there are many useful spells in there. Satsuki asks why they were given a mirror. Eileen explains that it is necessary for contact. Eileen thinks it's so the 3 of them can talk together. Eileen guesses it's to conserve mana. Eileen looked in the mirror. She noticed only her reflection. Suddenly, William appears on the surface of the mirror. He says that Alice is moving and asks Eileen to come to them. Eileen asks Satsuki and Cirilla to hold the mirror and stay alert. The girls agree and ask to simply contact them if anything happens. The girl arrived at her destination. She thanked William for waiting. The guy notices that Eileen is wearing typical knight's clothes. The girl says it's for safety. Now Eileen is going to find a location of Count Golderath. William asked the girl to wait a little so that he could use telepathy on her. Eileen agreed. Meanwhile, in the residence of Count Goldorath, the man thinks that nothing good is happening. They lost 1,000 gold coins because of the carriage incident. The high feudal lord did all the work. The servant asks the count to pull himself together and not to talk about himself in such a disparaging tone. The count replies that he is just a lazy son of a feudal lord. In any case, the count leaves all the annoying work to Alice. The servant says that Alice sometimes scares him. The servant remembers a village with bandits. He asks what the master will do if it comes to a fight. The count says that he will simply deal with everyone. The servant thought that the count simply liked the girl. The count agreed and explained that the girl was very beautiful after all. The count believes that if the girl does bad things, then nothing can be done about it. After all, they are not connected at all. The servant is surprised, because the girl probably works under the count's name, and if anything happens, he will be forced to take responsibility. Suddenly, the second servant runs up to the count and says that the knight Eileen of the Glacerode family has asked to meet the count again. The man is very surprised. It seems that he guesses the reason for the meeting. Eileen and Will found themselves at the count's. The girl apologizes for such a sudden intrusion. She says that she came to ask Count Goldorat about one thing. He says that he guessed when he heard the name of the knight Eileen, but he could not think that the princess herself would come to him. The servant thought it strange why he behaved like this when Alice was not at home. They were surrounded by many servants and guards. The count asked to sit down. William thinks that the last time he saw her was in the capital of the kingdom and she was just a small child. And now Eileen has grown into a beautiful girl. The count was very surprised to see this. William knows that the fact that Eileen stands out so much only makes the effect of the incomprehensible stronger, but he likes the atmosphere here. Will telepathically tells Eileen that the preparations are complete. The girl understands everything. The count asks what the princess wanted to ask. William and Eileen think that their first goal is to finish with Count Goldart. The count is clearly feeling out of place. Eileen says that she would like to ask the count's sorceress, Alice, her last name. The count knew the girl would ask him about this. He says that Alice is currently absent, but the princess can wait for her return. Eileen thinks that this will be a problem and refuses this opportunity. William mentally tells the girl to calm down. She thinks she's still a little nervous. The guy advises her to remember how she trains with a sword. The girl immediately darkened. She looked at the count with complete seriousness. He felt very creepy and began to wonder why Alice had left now. Will tells Eileen to make the Earl understand that he must be prepared to give up Alice if it came to that. Eileen understands. The girl asks the count if he knows about Alice's recent activities. The count, losing confidence, says that he hasn't been aware of what she's been doing lately. William realizes that the count has already started lying. Even if it is a mistake of his magical vision, it still sounds like he is trying to defend himself. From the count's point of view, one might think that he could avoid interrogation, or he would have to get rid of Alice. The girl says that she has heard something about her. She tells the count that Alice may have been practicing creating undead in a neighboring village on their territory and what happened to the missing village. Alice's eyes were fixed directly on the count, and her gaze frightened the man even more. William thinks the count is going crazy and wonders how he can get out of here. Suddenly, Count Goldart screams because he can't believe that Alice did this. Goldart says that it is impossible. William is a little surprised because the man gave an immediate answer. The boy has no doubt that the count is lying, but he wonders why he said those words. The count was ready to renounce Alice from the very beginning. William believes that the count is the real criminal behind all this. The count thinks that he did nothing and he must hand Alice over immediately. William will see what the Earl is thinking. The man thinks he should be a treasured possession of the royal family and his beloved people. Indeed, he can do nothing wrong. He cannot allow anyone to do such evil. William realizes that there is no reaction after all. He wonders why the villagers were defeated and if there is some hidden meaning to it. William realizes that the man is not to be taken lightly. Mentally tells Eileen that he has figured out the reason for the massacre of the villagers. But there is one thing that still interests him. The guy would like Eileen to try to figure out his motives. The girl said that she would try. The guy wonders if there is some other magic that can intercept him, and the count's face seems familiar to him. The count wondered if he would feel bad if Alice returned. The count wonders if he can really do this against a mage like Eileen. The count turns to the princess. He says that Alice is the court magician. If they leave her alive, he is sure that her actions will bring even more victims. The Count says they must wait until Alice returns to the mansion and deal with her with a surprise attack. He asks the princess for help. The girl mentally addresses Will and asks him if the Count really wants to just deal with Alice after destroying the village. The guy agrees. Will is thoughtful. He asks Eileen if she can defeat the 3 knights behind the Count and protect him. The girl agrees and says that they are no match for her. Will agrees and asks in this case to continue to find out the Count's motives. Eileen pulls her sword out of its sheath. The Count is immediately taken aback, and you can see cold sweat running down his face. She addresses the Count sternly and says that there was a very powerful magician next to her. The man clarifies, mentioning a mage in a robe with a strange staff. The Count was frightened by this fact and asked why he did not see the magician. The girl dreams that they are preparing to reveal the man's lie. He remembers that Alice spoke of some spell called lie detection. The Count thinks he must do something. Suddenly, the princess is stopped by William, who tells her that she was deceived by the Count. Eileen was already annoyed beyond measure. She asked if the Earl really wanted to tarnish her trust in Will. She asked the Earl to be careful, otherwise he would lose his head right there. The Count ordered in a convulsive voice to take the princess together with the magician. He promises to give the servants as much money as they want. The 3 men immediately glanced at the princess. Will grabbed his staff, preparing to attack. Suddenly, one of the men says in a trembling voice that this is impossible. He explains that they can't defeat a real knight, and they are just there for show. The Count is surprised, because he thought they were very strong. The man explains that they are just guards. The Count falls to the floor and screams about why it all ended like this. He says that evil is among them, meaning Alice. He says that he did nothing wrong. It all becomes clear to Will. He had doubts before, but now it all makes sense, and there is no need to beat around the bush. The girl understands that this Count is just a complete fool. The guards were tied up in the corner. The girl asks why the Count dealt with the people on his territory. The man says that Alice deceived him. The guy had already turned to Eileen, but the man finally corrected himself and said that Alice asked him to. Eileen asks the Count why he decided to kill innocent people only at the request of his court magician. After all, these are the people the Count should care about. The man explains that there was a reason for that. He tried to court Alice, and she set conditions for him. The girl did not believe what she heard. Then the man began to explain that he meant the woman's clothes. Eileen could not stand it and she already wanted to deal with him. Will says that he can understand the man, but he doesn't understand how that could be enough to order the destruction of the village. He explains that Alice told him that if she made progress in her research, then creating an army of the undead would not be just a dream. Eileen was angry to the limit. She clenched her fists to somehow contain her aggression. The girl was already heading towards the Count, but Will immediately stopped her and told the girl to calm down. Eileen knows that she shouldn't be angry. The girl, noticing the guy's hand on her shoulder, became embarrassed and calmed down. Suddenly, the Count started talking about clothes again. A few moments later, under the influence of magic, Count Goldart began to talk about how he was a loser. After the carriage worth 1,000 coins crashed, his whole life went downhill. Will asks Eileen to step aside for a second. The guy tells her a story, and the girl realizes that what he said was true. Now the boys gathered at Mia's. The girl was glad that it was finally time for the final boss. Eileen expressed her desire to stay where she was. After all, someone had to look after the Count. The girl called Eileen to come with them. Eileen explains that this is exactly what she likes about the girl. However, she must take care of Will so that nothing happens to him. Satsuki asks why Eileen doesn't come with them if she's so worried. Satsuki tightly. The girl remarks that it is time for Satsuki to learn to listen. Eileen smiles and tells Satsuki to make this place safe and nice. Eileen sees the boys off. Will says that they will be back soon. The girl notes that Alice's tracks will lead straight to that place near the warning barrier. Will agrees. He says that the distance to Alice should now be about 50 meters. Satsuki suggests that they simply break the barrier and enter it. The girl does not understand her friend's enthusiasm and denies it. Will says that if they attract attention, the barrier will detect them, but if they slip through the perceptions without being noticed, the girl understands. She says that it is not necessary to hide to remain unnoticed. Will explains that there could also be a trap. Perhaps Will should use projectile deflection or mana for the upcoming fight. The girl asks to explain to the guys about the deflection of the projectiles. Will says that it is magic that is used to protect against any projectiles. As long as the enemy does not get the ballista, they will be safe. The guy says that he wants to avoid using any high-level magic for now. The magic battle will basically just be a reading game anyway. Will wants Alice to think that he is just a beginner mage. Meanwhile, Satsuki picked up a sprig of cattail and began to catch up with Mia with it. The girl says that stealth will be more than enough, and the traps can be left to Mia. The guy agrees and considers it quite logical. Meanwhile, Alice began taking notes. She grabbed her staff as soon as she felt the barrier react to 4 people. If there was only one person, she would have thought that a rat had gotten lost here. But now Alice understands that she was being followed. The girl uses the skill of the magic eye. The boys are walking along the road. Will uses a magic arrow and cuts off Alice's guidance. The girl was amazed. She understands that the magic eye was destroyed. She understands that this mage used detection magic. However, only someone who has abandoned the Institute of Witchcraft can be an adventurer mage. The girl wonders what she should do with them. However, the idea did not take long to appear, and the girl believes that she needs to try one method. Satsuki asks what it was. Will thinks it was probably Alice's magical eye trying to figure out who came in. The girl hurries to ask if it's okay to attack him head-on like that. Will explains that magic senses magic arrows. These are all initial spells. Will only fired one magic arrow, so Alice will think he is a newbie magician, but it seems their plan failed. Mia wants to continue on her way. Will agrees and says that they are now ready for a surprise attack. The girl pouts and says that maybe she should learn some magic too. The boys suddenly ran. William turns to the girl and says that if she wants, he has more than 100 books on magic for beginners. Among all this, the easiest for him are several topics. Suddenly, Satsuki distracts him and tells him to look ahead and talk about it later. The guy agrees. The boys reached an old house in the forest. Will believes that the center of the barrier is in this small shed. The girl believes that Alice is here researching the undead. She wonders what the girl is trying to achieve by going so far and breaking the ban. The guy thinks that after researching the undead at the Institute of Witchcraft, Alice Flamilia became interested in her. Perhaps something could have provoked this. He recalls being told that they were both problem children, but becoming an adventurer was definitely better than breaking the taboo. Mi lands next to the boys and says that she has finished her reconnaissance. She reports that there is not a single soul around or inside it. Everyone was shocked that there was no one inside the barn. The girl agrees and says that she did notice one suspicious thing. The door is open, there is no one inside. There is only an open door that leads deep underground, standing out in the interior. Everyone finds this very suspicious. Satsuki notices that the sense magic doesn't see anything. It really seems unusual. Mi asks why it ends like this. The girl suggests taking a quick look at the basement, but she remembers that they can't waste mana. Will was just about to use the penetrating gaze, but immediately received a scolding from the girl. The guy notices that it does cost a lot of mana, but it is necessary now. It seems that the descent down is quite safe. The boys went down the stairs. They came across a door. It turned out to be the only door. There was a high chance that the boys would see Alice behind this door. Will agreed and said that, unfortunately, the visibility range was limited. Also, offensive magic will be out of reach to hit them, unless Alice has a bow or something. The girl says that in this case, they will not be immediately bombarded with spells. Satsuki urged the guys to start a mission and get rid of it. William wonders if Alice is truly evil, since he thinks that justice is something relative. Meanwhile, Alice is in the dungeon and notices a noise behind her. A pet that looks more like a skeleton approaches Alice. It happily wags its tail and approaches the woman to pet it. Meanwhile, Cirilla thinks that, in striving for the truth of justice, faith will eventually begin to waver. She speaks of how dark madness denies distorted justice. An awkward silence fell between the guys. The girl explains that she is a priestess of the goddess of light and justice, Autona. William understands that this is the teaching of this goddess. Satsuki does not understand anything. She thinks that Will is against defeating Alice. Will, hesitating a bit, says that he agrees after all. The girl notes that it is a simple but good question. The guys open the doors. Satsuki understands that it is finally time to attack. They open the door and see a pile of bones, carcasses, lanterns on the walls, and Alice herself. However, the woman was quite far from William's group. The boys were amazed that the girl was so far away. Mia couldn't believe that the woman had been standing in the distance all this time and waiting for the boys. Will notices that there is magic on the wall behind Alice. Mia grabs Will by the sleeve and says that the wall behind Alice gives her a strange feeling that is hard to describe. The girl has a feeling that the wall is not there. Alice greeted the adventurers. She asks them if they liked the research lab. She says that the guys can visit her whenever they want, because their bodies will be very useful for their research. Cyrilla exclaimed and thought it was time to put an end to these ridiculous jokes. She asked if the woman wasn't ashamed of these words. Alice notices the girl's aggression. She thinks that the guys didn't find this place by chance. Cyrilla asks why the woman wants to come a little closer. Will assumes it's because they are currently out of range. Mi agrees and believes that their attacks will not be able to reach their targets. She does not understand who would rush into battle so easily. However, Satsuki has already rushed forward and asked her friends to watch her attack carefully. However, the guys quickly interrupted her. They explain that this wall is most likely just a trick. There is magic called illusion magic. It can do something like this. The girl wonders what Alice is hiding then. Will understands that the mana consumption is high, but he must use it here. William whispers to Cyrilla if she could buy herself some time. The girl asks Alice if she is really okay with something so horrible. Alice thinks it's stupid and smirks. She thinks that's why the boys don't understand the importance and magnificence of this research. Meanwhile, the magic eye is heading for the wall. Alice proudly asks what the girl would do then. A mage who was kicked out of the Institute of Witchcraft, whose only choice was to become an adventurer. She says that in the eyes of the world she is nothing more than a little girl. While Alice was provoking the girl, she wondered what was wrong with her. After all, there wasn't that much of a difference in age. Mia noticed that this conversation was giving her a headache. Alice says that she is now trying to do something that no one from the Institute has ever done before. At this time, a magical eye penetrates the wall, and William notices a terrible picture. A crowd of zombies stands, armed with bows. Alice removes the magic wall and says that she will show it to the world. Behind her stands an army of zombies. William explains that there are about 20 zombies with longbows. The girl is extremely surprised. She asks if zombies can also have bows. After all, they can't perform such complex operations. The boys think that this might be the result of Alice's research. Mi realizes that with the help of longbows, they will be able to reach them. Satsuki asks why the woman doesn't attack them then. The girl believes that it's to prevent the boys from escaping, since the closer they are to her, the more accurate the zombies' attacks are. Satsuki is serious. She asks the guys what they should do now. William is going to explain the plan. The girl is surprised that the guy already had a plan for this case. Alice asks the guys to finish already, because she wanted to get back to her research. William says that he is going to strengthen the girl's protection from magic and counter-magic, just in case. Alice notices that the boys have finally made up their minds. Will said that he was counting on Satsuki. The girl is full of enthusiasm. Will understands that if they manage to deceive Alice with this, then victory will be on their side. Meanwhile, Alice is already preparing to attack. Alice Flamilia was born into a powerful family. She was very sweet and loved by her parents. Many considered her an angel because she was so beautiful. A man tells his wife that everything his daughter wears sells very well. The girl was just a doll, an advertisement for her family. One day she looks sadly at her parents, hugging her toy, and asks if they will leave again because of their work. The girl became sad because she would be lonely. Her mother leaned over to her and asked for forgiveness for not understanding right away. The girl was already happy and thought that her parents would stay home. However, the mother assumed that the girl wanted a pet. The mother said that the girl could ask anyone. Now Alice has a little puppy. He was jumping happily in the girl's arms. He was so beautiful that he could be compared to an angel. Alice finds qualities between her pet and herself. She stroked him when she was lonely, played with him, bathed him, and slept with him. Suddenly, the pet's life came to an end. Alice was very upset by this event. Her mother tried to console her by promising to buy a replacement for the pet. Her mother believed that if they looked hard enough, they would surely be able to find exactly the same one. Alice did not appreciate these words from her mother. Unfortunately, the girl lay in her room for several days. The parents tried to get through to her and ask her to leave the room. She heard a voice behind the door, talking about looking for a replacement model. Alice remembered her pet with tears in her eyes. And after some time, she is already digging up the place where her pet was. She is firmly convinced that there can be no replacement for anything. Now, in front of her are the bones of her pet. She learned the art of creating golems from a book. She gathered the bones into one pile. The parents were happy with their daughter's interest in magic. They believed that Alice could become a wizard if she graduated from the Institute of Witchcraft. Little Alice understood that her dream could come true. Now the girl is studying at the Institute of Witchcraft. She remembers how the teacher said that any magic related to the undead is forbidden. Alice understands that the undead are forbidden. If she can do what no one else could do, then no one else will need to be replaced. She understands that her ideal world is based on the undead. In her free time, she collected remains at home and then tried to revive them. Her parents were shocked by such an activity. After they entered their daughter's room once again, Alice thought it was time to work. She wondered what clothes she should wear this time. Alice overheard her parents talking. Her mother despaired because no matter what she said, Alice would not stop. Her father suggested simply giving her money so that the servants could hide it. Meanwhile, Alice is going crazy. She will do anything for her research. She needs more remains to get more data. She needs more human remains, and she'll use whatever she can get. Alice enchanted men and, using this, obtained materials for her research. Alice is adamant that she will give it everything she has. Her parents were in complete shock when they caught their daughter getting materials. She happily asked her parents what clothes she should wear for the ad. Father talks about the other servants keeping their mouths shut. The man doesn't care how the servants do it. The exhibits must be hidden at any cost. Father doesn't understand why it had to end this way. Alice realizes that her parents are at their limit, and she may have to look for another sponsor. The girl looks at the lists of employers. She notices Count Goldart, who is famous for being very charming. Alice truly thanks the adventurers for helping her prove her research. William tells the boys to go for it. Under normal circumstances, the boys would be at a disadvantage. Alice raises her staff and uses the dispel skill, and immediately, all of her research subjects raise their bows. Alice believes that the adventurers are finished. The boys huddled together because they were scared because the undead can use bows. All they can do is cut off the path. Suddenly, the boys were protected from attacks by an arrow, a large shield. Alice was surprised. Satsuki acts on command. Alice wonders what that was. After all, projectile deflection is an intermediate-level magic, and a beginner mage should not be able to use it. Will thinks that their plan worked. Alice turned to the guys and urged them to prepare for the next volley. For someone like Alice, who is only focused on her own research, it is hard to make calm and collected conclusions for her next step. Unlike them, adventurers who fight like this every day. Suddenly, Alice's pet pulled her by the hem. She didn't have time to give the command and covered herself with her robe from Satsuki's attack. The pet flew away. They realized that the creature did it on its own. Alice is furious. She turns to Will and asks how he dared to deceive her. It is impossible that a mage who can use projectile deflection could only fire one magic arrow. Will realizes that their plan hasn't worked perfectly. They have no choice but to fight face to face. Alice notices Satsuki flying towards her, swinging her sword. The woman creates a force field to protect herself. However, the force field begins to crack, and the woman wonders what kind of force it is. Satsuki knows this magic and this feeling. The girl understands that Alice is afraid. The woman renews the force field and orders to prepare for the next volley. Alice didn't notice at all how a girl ran behind her in order to launch a surprise attack. After that, Mia ran and fired her weapon. Thus, they destroyed the force field. Alice wanted to activate it again. Here the girl recited a spell to bury the undead. And Alice's entire army seemed to dissolve into thin air. The woman looked at this event with horror. She understands that the girl dealt with them with one spell, which means that she must urgently leave this place and run. Alice turns her attention to Will. He starts using magic arrows to attack the woman. The woman thinks he is a fool, because if they continue to use the same magic, she will win. Alice was surprised that only 3 arrows came out. She wonders why a mid-level mage can do this. Then she wonders if the guy is a mage. Alice thinks he must be a wizard. Will realizes that Alice can also fire 3 arrows at once. The guy has almost no mana left to attack. He thinks that before Alice can do any magic, it would be great if the staff did their job. Mia and Cyrilla are also on the attack. However, the guy knows. Because he saw the bride caught in the church, her horror and despair were immediately visible. And the reason for all this is Alice Flamilia. The girls began to attack the woman at once, breaking her power barriers. The guy wishes he had a little more time and strength. He can't afford to lose here. Suddenly, he hears an object fall to the floor with a clang. Alice wonders what to do, because this wizard and his team members, whom she has no information about, can hit her. Alice thinks that she must get out of here urgently at any cost. She wants to activate the force field skill again. It turns out that she is struck by some object. Suddenly, Alice realizes that this is the fourth arrow. Here, Satsuki suddenly destroys the power barrier once again without much difficulty. Alice doesn't want to end her life in such a place. She knows she can't stop the girl. She gave herself entirely to researching the undead and lost so much. It was for the good of the world. Alice wonders what will be left if the undead are taken away from her. Alice realizes that this is something only she can do. If this is not so, then why was Alice born into this world at all, and why did she live? With this question, the woman's eyes fade, because Satsuki pierced her chest with her sword. The woman fell to the floor. Her hands twitched occasionally. The undead were her world, were her everything. She didn't want to be someone's replacement. She wanted to be unique. Eileen greets the boys with joy. She is glad to see everyone healthy. Cirilla hands Eileen a book and asks her to look at it. As it turned out, the book contained all the records of Alice's career. Cirilla says that they were careless and read it, that is, each of the boys read it. They started making a fire and collecting firewood. Eileen started remembering about the wizard who was kicked out by his parents and who was restricted by his father. Siri asked who the girl was talking about. Eileen explained that she was talking about Will, whose father was against him becoming an adventurer. Cirilla understands that Will's father, as the leader of the court magicians, would probably not approve of this. At this point, Eileen wants to ask Cirilla for a favor. Meanwhile, Will and Mia were already warming themselves by the fire. Cirilla comes up to them and says that she has been thinking about something. The girl realizes that the guy is burning documents about the undead. Will agrees and says that the reason for this research is not important and it should not exist. The girl humbly looked at the fire and offered her help, taking one of the books in her hands. Suddenly, Cirilla remembers that there was another undead who was not cleansed. Will says that it is not her fault. Will says that this creature was resurrected with the help of golem-making magic. The girl did not let the guy finish and asked him to wait, because this is not what she came to talk about. She remembers that she couldn't leave it like that, so she decided to take it to Alice's body, but it crumbled along the way. This makes the girl think, what is justice really? The maid gave Satsuki some wood for the fireplace. The girls wonder what Cirilla and Will are talking about. Cirilla closed her eyes and asked the guy to tell her everything, because she noticed the pained expression on his face. The guy refused. He says that he just looks like that and it has nothing to do with what he feels inside. Suddenly, Cirilla angrily asks the guy to consider the atmosphere, because she means that he can rely on them. The fire mercilessly destroys all of Alice's records. Will says he's just been thinking about some things. Will wonders what his father would do. He throws another page into the fire. He talks about how he was the one who said to burn everything to the ground. The guy doesn't know if he did the right thing or not. He wonders if this really makes the girl question what justice is. Cirilla looks away and agrees with the guy. She agrees with his decision to burn all the research, so she will join him. He believes that now makes her and the guy accomplices. Satsuki grabbed a few papers and expressed her desire to join the boys, as she no longer wants victims like Philia. Mia agrees. Instead of thinking about something complicated, the girl prefers to do simple things like this. Satsuki asks if the boys can change their profession to accomplices. Mie doubts that it is a profession. Will says he wants to remain an adventurer. Cirilla asks him to catch the atmosphere again. Mia is scared by this reaction and the guy apologizes. Eileen approaches the boys and repeats the boy's question about his father. She asks to lend her some paper too. The guy raises that with these words the curtain has fallen on his latest adventures. Now the action takes place in the city of Altera in the Adventurers Guild. As an E rank, Eileen waved to the boys and asked them to take care. The boys nodded and waved goodbye. Cirilla approaches Eileen and asks if this is really okay, because she thinks Eileen could be a good mentor for William. Eileen refuses because she thinks she's not good enough. There are things people can't say if they're too close. Cirilla attracted the girl's attention a little by pretending to cough. She is sure that this would bring good progress in Eileen's love. Here she screamed that she does not understand what Cirilla is talking about. The boy is happy that he has now received E rank. Satsuki notices that he looks happy. The girl is burning with shame. She understands that Cirilla guessed everything. The girl gives a thumbs up and says that it is too obvious. Eileen covers her face with her hands. She wonders if Will had to choose between her and his desire to be an adventurer. He would definitely choose the latter. Mia wasn't thrilled about this talk. Besides, Eileen doesn't want to give up her career as a knight, so she can't go with them. Eileen smiles good-naturedly and says that if she becomes a girl blindly in love, it will make the situation easier. The boy agrees. He remembers that, after all, it was Eileen who was his first adventure partner. Eileen was very touched, because she didn't think the guy remembered their adventures. At this point, Satsuki lost his temper, but Eileen quickly stopped her. Eileen said that the girl should be more elegant. Eileen waves to the boys. She says that she needs to leave now. At this point, Satsuki got angry again and said that next time she would definitely win against her. Eileen looked at her and said that she should definitely try it. Cirilla thinks the girls are talking about practice. She thought Satsuki did it every morning. Suddenly, Satsuki got angry. She explains that it's because she doesn't feel like she's getting stronger than the princess. She suddenly rushes to the side and asks the boys not to look for her. Now the boys understood everything. Cirilla suggested looking for a task that Satsuki might like. The only thing that comes to mind is exterminating orcs. Satsuki was very happy about this task. A few minutes later, she looked sadly at the defeated orc. Mii then confirmed the victory. Satsuki asks Cirilla if something like this has happened before. She suggests that someone came to this place before them, since the orc was hit in vital points. Will realizes that this is a well-practiced attack, possibly involving sleep. Mii believes that not much time has passed since the orcs were defeated. The girl doesn't hear or feel anyone. Cirilla mentioned the magic eye again. After all, the boys can't be sure that their enemy's enemy is their ally. The guy, watching the girls, looks at his staff. He understands that it is better to be safe than sorry. Sometime before, in the forest, a girl skillfully jumped into the middle of an open clearing. She informed her leader that there were no signs of orcs nearby. She thinks they will be safe for a while. The men don't think they should let their guard down so early. The man reproaches Lefania for not relaxing just because they are used to peace and quiet. The girl stamped her foot decisively. She says that everything is fine as long as she has legs. She wonders where Kalphos is now. The man points his finger at the guy who was sitting on a branch of a tall tree. Kalphos trembled and clung to the trunk because he was very afraid of the orcs. The girl began to say that Kalphos had enough skills and talent to be chosen as a fighter. Therefore, he should hold his head high and come down from the tree. Suddenly, a couple who were talking to each other were reproached for not flirting while working. In response, the girl suggested that they simply find a boyfriend. Lefania asked not to worry about her. After all, she believes that the handsome prince on a white horse will soon find her. The man asked Lefania if she was serious about this. The guys asked if a white horse was really that important to a leader. Then she asked to stop joking, because even she could share the fantasy of reality. The girl asks if it could just be a handsome prince on a white horse. She thinks that then he should come to her aid when she finds herself in a difficult situation. The elves are glad that the leader has such a flourishing imagination. The elves saw the guard. Kalphos was immediately scared as soon as he saw the orc. The girl agreed with him. She says that the biggest threat from the orcs is their enormous physical strength. But with the ease, agility, and magic of the elves, it is easy to get rid of the orcs. The leader stretched out her hand forward. She explained that it was just a large piece of fat. She ordered all the elves to prepare sleep. The orc immediately fell asleep. Here the elves came close to him and prepared their swords. They are all sure that the orcs are no match for the elven warriors. Suddenly, the monsters suddenly woke up from some attacks. The leader couldn't believe that even though the elves had hit his vital organs, he had woken up. However, he grabbed his weapon, but was unable to make a single movement and fell lifeless to the ground. The elves noted the terrible tenacity of the orcs. The leader, of course, did not expect this, but encouraged the team that they could still do everything. The boys look out from around the corner and notice several orcs. The battle between them began again. The elves are not happy that the monsters are resisting them. The elves quickly dealt with the orcs, attack after attack. Even Kalphos was forced to fight them. Lefania fired a magic arrow and hit the orc that was next to Kalphos. There were so many of them that it was very difficult to deal with them. The elf felt that her sword was not there, and a huge orc was already standing behind her. The girl only had time to look at him with a frightened look. And suddenly, one of the elves substituted her body for her friend. The orc didn't keep us waiting long and hit the elf right on the head, killing her. All the elves were horrified. Lefania immediately rushed towards the orc, pointing her weapons in his direction. In such a narrow cave, the elves will not be able to show their strength. The guys call on Lefania to retreat for a while. In response, the girl only asks not to joke with her. Lefania turns around, tears of horror and hurt in her eyes. She's not going to leave here until she's finished with every orc here. The guy explains that if they're not careful, it won't end well for them. Then the leader reminded the elves that they were warriors. If they retreated, their brother's death would be meaningless. The leader ordered that the operation continue, and the boys must go. Suddenly, a clicking sound catches their attention. As it turns out, the orcs are advancing again. Unfortunately, the ground beneath their feet became less than reliable, and one of the elves fell into the abyss. As it turned out, a trap had been prepared for them. Meanwhile, the boys went down to the cave. Satsuki said that she was very bored. She asked why she couldn't just go forward. Cirilla explains that there is a high probability that there may be high-ranking orcs who can use magic. Satsuki remembers the goblins. Satsuki said that she sees these massacres again in her dreams. Will suddenly notices that there are orc bodies lying in front of them. He realizes that this time, it looks more like a fight. Will realizes that there is another body lying next to the orc. However, it is difficult to judge by the headless body, but it is possible that it is an elf. Cirilla was surprised that they managed to see an elf. Will urged the boys to move forward. Cirilla noted that it was most likely a direct hit to the head with a club. Will understands that they are in a bad situation, because he does not know if the guys will make it in time. The girls started running. They decided that Will would explain everything along the way. The guy agrees. It was explained that a group of elves is surrounded by orcs. One fell into a trap and was badly injured. There is also an orc who looks like the leader. Once again on the battlefield between elves and orcs. Rado's friend is struck by a magical arrow. The leader understands that there is no point in dodging it. The guy got scared and ran away from them again. And the leader looks sullenly at the orc leader and thinks, what about her legs? Because she will be able to reach the orc first. However, she still rushes forward with the intention of crushing the orc. But then the girl is struck by weakening forces. Two orc silhouettes begin to move away from her. She lands on the ground with a thud and barely lifts her body. She understands that the orc is also high-ranking, because his movement is too fast. The monster looked at her sullenly, against the new models. The leader thought about how to get out of this situation. Rado can't fight with such wounds, and Kalthos can only dodge these attacks. The leader understands that she can't defeat them. They have no way to stop the magic arrow. The leader thinks why everything turned out this way. She thinks that they should have retreated earlier. However, her rage clouded her eyes. She thought that they could defeat the orcs. After all, they defeated the first guard so easily, and Lefania took it as an easy job. Suddenly, the orc began to glow and rise into the air. He was struck by lightning. Now the orc leader's staff fell to the ground with a clang. As it turned out, Will arrived almost in time. He struck the orc leader with his attack. The elf leader was surprised that people came to their aid. Cirilla told Satsuki that she could deal with the orc standing behind her. The elf was surprised that people, and a girl who looked like a cat, came to them. The orcs became furious again, and began to swing their clubs. Satsuki skillfully returned from the blow and flew straight at the monster. Will swung his staff and cast an enchantment on Satsuki's weapon, making her attack lightning fast. The girl launched an attack and accidentally hit the wall next to Kalthos. He was so scared that he fell to the floor. The girl asks if the guy is alright. The elf says that he is very sorry. Satsuki did not understand this. A huge orc was standing behind her and was already preparing to swing his weapon. It took the girl a split second to deal with him. At this time, Cirilla and me decided to deal with another orc. They skillfully attacked him, thus defeating him. Once Cirilla and me had done their job, they called Satsuki to finish it. Suddenly, Rado asks Cirilla who they are. The girl only asks to be silent because she is going to use a healing miracle on him. The elven leader lowered her head and looked at the floor in horror. She realized how easily they dealt with the orcs. Mi secured the rope, to the rock. Satsuki, holding the end, jumped down into the trap to rescue the elves. The leader realizes that the boys came to their aid in their time of trouble. Will asks Lefania if she is okay. The girl sees Will perfectly, because this is her dream. The leader thanks the guy. She says that most likely her comrades need help. Cirilla says that there are many wounded here and she will need time. She is going to go there as soon as she takes care of the wounded. Will understood everything and asked the leader not to strain himself. Lafania asks what the guys are. Will explains that they are adventurers and have come here on a mission to clear out the orcs. The leader explained that they were warriors from an elven village that was located near this place. It was on the lower back that her village was attacked by orcs. Cirilla and Satsuki successfully pulled the elf out of the trap. Suddenly, one of the elves, whom Cirilla was treating, began to cry bitterly. The leader realizes that she is not so good. She thinks that she should have become a toy for the orcs, because that would have been a worthy punishment. The guy thinks about the curtains capturing females of other races to use them for reproduction. Will remembers that the orcs are especially interested in elven girls. But despite this, the girls should not have been told this. Will did not know what to do. He thought for a moment and after a couple of minutes took off his cape. Will, undressing, asks the leader for forgiveness in advance. Will pulled Lafania closer to him and suggested that perhaps the girl would not like it. Suddenly, Lafania stopped seeing. Will said that the girl was harming herself with such an attitude and she should calm down. The guy wrapped his jacket around her head. Will reports that his mother used to do this when the boy couldn't calm down. It really helped him. He thinks that he can take off his jacket if she doesn't like it. The girl agrees with Will. Then the leader approaches his guys with a jacket on his head and asks them to forgive her for acting rashly. Now she is calm. Will explains that it's okay, because absolutely anyone can lose their temper. Satsuki, me, and Cirilla don't understand what's going on. The leader took the jacket off her face and wrapped it around her comrade. The elf in the jacket starts to cry, but seems to calm down. The boys look at the elves with concern. The leader expresses a desire to thank the boys once again for saving them. Will calmly looked at the girl, and she became embarrassed. She immediately began to turn her head, unable to find a place for herself, and ask how she could thank the guys. Will does not ask for gratitude, because they came to him completely by accident. The boys will receive a reward for destroying the orcs. Lafania cannot allow this. And then she blurts out the words that the guys can relax in the elf village if they want. The rest of the elves understood everything when they remembered the leader's words about the prince on a white horse appearing in a dangerous situation. Cirilla and Mia understood everything too. The elves agreed. They thought it made sense. The elves couldn't let anyone think they weren't paying their debts. That was what the leader had meant. Satsuki says that she has never seen an elven village before, which Cirilla finds interesting, and Mia would like to see her reward. In this case, Will agrees and accepts the leader's offer. The girl with a bright smile said that the village would gladly accept the rescuers. The boys arrived at the elven village. Satsuki was surprised that the elven houses were in the trees. Mii, with her keen eye, noticed the curious glances of the elves who were watching the newcomers. One of the elves asks Kalphos for forgiveness, because he must provide a report. After receiving the consent, the man jumped high onto the branch, climbing higher and higher up the trees. Satsuki was amazed at how agile the elves actually were. The girl noticed that the elves do not use aura like their Mii. Mii explains that she just has very strong legs. The leader says that their methods of movement are indeed different, because they train as warriors and learn to use their legs like springs. Elves' bodies are naturally quite light, so they are more effective in high-speed combat. Satsuki really has a hard time understanding this. Satsuki didn't understand anything, but she still wanted the elf leader to teach her. Lafania was inspired. In that case, she asked Satsuki to tell her more about swordsmanship, since Satsuki's fighting style made the leader tremble. The girl found this idea not bad. Will asks Lafania to step aside for a moment. He has something he wants to tell her now that she has calmed down a bit. Cirilla finds it a bit difficult to process Will and Lafania's interactions when she constantly thinks about Lady Eileen. Mia understands that it is rare to see the moment when someone's love begins. Will remembers Lafania's words about her becoming a toy for the orcs. The guy finds this bad. The girl was very sorry. Will praised the leader for such responsibility, but asked her not to make unnecessary sacrifices. Lafania realized that the guy was very kind. Cirilla found it wonderful, and Mia noticed that Will could read the atmosphere. Will advises Lafania that if she wants to be responsible, she should not invest regrets from the past. Cirilla and Mia nod their heads in agreement. Will notes that the girl should reflect and improve in the future. Will continues to talk about how Lafania needs to reflect on what exactly led to such a mistake, something Cirilla and Mia did not expect to hear at all. Will says that this is necessary so as not to make similar mistakes in the future. Lafania understands everything and agrees with the guy. At this point, Cirilla grabs the guy by the hood and tells him to stop talking. Mie pats the leader on the shoulder in support. Suddenly Mia perked up. She noticed one detail in the forest. Will saw it and asked what happened. The girl says that she heard steps in a certain direction. However, Will's barrier didn't feel anything. All the other guys had already pulled themselves up to Will and Mia. Mia determined the direction of the sounds and said that perhaps these were the steps of an elf. Lafania explained that due to the orc attacks, almost no elves leave the village. Cirilla learned from the leader that there are several other elven villages nearby. Cirilla says that the largest of the villages is under the control of her mother. Suddenly, Lafania looks away. Red spots are running down the legs of the wounded body and dripping onto the ground. Will, carefully laying the body on the ground, called Cirilla for help. As it turned out, the victim was Lafania's mother. She was clearly not feeling well. Now it seemed that another tragedy was approaching Lafania. Lafania's mother opened her eyes with an effort. She mumbled that she had finally found herself in the elven village. Will tells Lafania that Cirilla will help first, since she is a priest. He asks if the woman has relatives nearby. The elf woman is not sure. Cirilla applies a light treatment. Lafania stands behind her and does not know how to approach her mother. Lafania timidly calls her mother. She immediately responds, but she is unable to get up due to her weakness. Cirilla realizes that once is not enough. She is going to apply the light treatment again. The woman apologizes for the inconvenience. Lafania asks what happened to her mother. Mother explains that a group of orcs went to attack their main village. Satsuki immediately prepared to go into battle, but the elf woman immediately mentioned the size of their squad. The woman says that the one who leads them has the highest rank possible, the Emperor of the Orcs, and these orcs themselves are about 100 or more. Satsuki wasn't ready to hear such a number. All the boys sat down in the elf house to discuss the situation. The elves of Lafania village approached her mother, Finola, and asked if there shouldn't have been at least 4 times as many elves there as in their village. The entire main village had at least 400 elves. The men assume that Finola must be stronger than any other elven warrior in the area. Will realizes that they could participate as mercenaries if they were allowed. He sees in the girl an incredible desire to participate. Satsuki turns around and asks the boy if he couldn't defeat the 100 himself by using a fireball or lightning to make them explode. The guy realizes that to better sell themselves as mercenaries, they shouldn't be too modest. He thinks that going along with his honest opinion would be best. The guy understands that everything depends on how the orcs act. However, they are led by the Emperor, so it will not be easy. Suddenly, Lafania lit up. She asked the boy if, depending on the enemy, the boy would be able to take care of him himself. Cirilla says that if William had not held back, he would have been able to handle it. Mie immediately remembered the battle with the undead. That Will began to tell Finola how it all worked. He explained the system of forming orc squads and who goes under the Emperor's command. Cirilla realized that the guy had actually explained it as if it meant nothing. Will says that the orc lord is equal in strength to Satsuki. Based on this, it can be assumed that the orc emperor is as strong as Eileen. Cirilla and Mie did not expect to hear about such a monster's power. Cirilla can't believe it. Will keeps saying that the orc's magic and life force is quite strong. Even with his magic, he doubts he can hit him with one blow. In the end, there was only the mage and the chieftain in the cave. Will says that lightning is a spell that strikes through. He defeated the two then, but didn't quite hit the mark. The girls drooped. Cirilla clasped her hands in her lap. She understands that there is no way they can win. Cirilla asks if they don't have an elven army in the village. Finola says that there are many warriors in the neighboring villages, but in the main village there are about 23 elves. If they gathered everyone in the surrounding villages, they could get only 100 elves. While the elves will be asking for additional help, the captured ones will most likely no longer be able to act due to the harsh process of clashing with the orcs. Will asks Finola how much she is willing to pay to hire them as mercenaries. Satsuki wanted to refuse the guy, but he immediately explained to her. Will talks about how they should think about their own lives. If Satsuki is willing to risk her life just for the well-being of the elves, then she will hardly last in this world. Will offers to negotiate terms with the elves so that they know when he can come out. Satsuki is indignant. Now the girl leaves everything to the guy. Cirilla also can't stay calm about this, so she and Mie also left everything to the guy. Will asks for a daily payment of 20 gold coins each, and another 200 gold once they complete the task. Will says that if he and the boys feel any danger that could harm their lives, they will retreat immediately. Naturally, even in this case, they ask to be paid for the days they work. If the elves are satisfied with these conditions, then the guys are not against cooperating. Finola turns to her daughter and asks about her material skills. The girl said that she can vouch for them. Finola gets up from the ground and agrees to the guys' terms. Everyone arrived at the main village of the elves, the evacuation site. Here, one elf meets the group and greets Finola. He is surprised that her daughter and people are walking next to her. The woman said there that she would explain everything later and sent him to go inside. Finola and Lafania lead the boys down the passage. Will surveys the area. Will realizes that they can use the structure of the cave. They went inside the room. There were elves there who were able to evacuate. They were resting on the canvas. Finola explains that most of them were defeated and ran away. The boy asks if there is a chance for the elves to unite again. The woman says that there is no chance. She only hopes that they have been given shelter in the nearby villages. Will asks Finola if there is another entrance to the cave besides the one they just used. The woman refuses. The guy explains that if this is really the case, then it is very dangerous. After all, if the orcs overwhelm them with numbers, then everything will be over. The guys are too vulnerable to any attacks. For example, they can be smoked out. Finola is full of seriousness. She turned away from the guy, thinking about what was said. The elf explains that this is a cave that they found by accident because they just wanted to hide from the rain. It is the farthest place from the main village, and it is relatively large. It was enough for temporary shelter. Cirilla asks the guy Oni if he can put himself in their place. After all, the elves had to run for their lives and accidentally found this place. Here Mia mentions the attitude towards elves and that they can be much older than Will. Will continues to talk about how, from a strategy and battle tactics standpoint, it is very dangerous to be in such a position. Meanwhile, Cirilla tries to bring him to his senses, reminding him of his spiritual care. At this point, Finola laughed, even though it hurt her to admit it. But the guy was right. Finola would think about changing her position. Lafania was very happy that her mother had made such a decision. Many elves were resting or tending to the wounded. Finola says that these are all the elves she could gather. There were about 100 of them. Cirilla is already running with the intention of curing them all. The elves are very grateful to the boys. Here, the elves were surprised that their wounds were healed so quickly. The girl wonders if the elves really don't have healers or priests. The inhabitants explain that since they are elves, they do not share any religious beliefs. They have nothing of the sort. Suddenly, one of the elves runs into the cave and shouts that the orcs are heading towards them. The woman does not believe these words. The man explains that there are about 13 orcs, the size of a normal squad. There must be some orc of higher rank there to keep the balance. You want more elves now, but they can't relax. They can't relax. They can't wage a full-scale war yet. Will notice something off to the side. The guy asks Finola to let him and Satsuki go first. Finola understands that the guy has come up with something and agrees to his proposal. She gives the command to the others to get ready. Will calls Satsuki to action. The girl is fully prepared. Will asked Satsuki to stand in the hallway to stop the orcs. When Will gave the signal, the girl was to duck. Satsuki is not used to fighting between walls like in this cave. In any case, the battle will be one-on-one. Here, Will uses the see-through gaze. He sees a squad of orcs led by a general. Satsuki asks to give it to her, and then an orc appears from around the corner. There are a few more looking out behind him. They look and smile in the direction of the boys. Satsuki realizes that the monsters are looking at her as prey. She thinks that the monster should not underestimate her. Satsuki tells the monsters not to underestimate her. She rushes forward, but is immediately overtaken by the guy's magic arrows. Magic arrows hit monsters in no time. As a result, the first orc was hit. Satsuki realizes that she did nothing. Then all the other orcs got scared and ran away. The magic arrows reached those who had not yet managed to escape. Here Satsuki says that she does not find anything critical in this. Suddenly, the boys are distracted by a very loud noise, and they wonder what it could be. Satsuki is very determined. She believes that the enemy must answer for her earache. The guy understands that the furious roar comes from the orc general. Will already believes that it is addressed to the orcs who wanted to escape. At this point, the crowd of orcs rushed into battle again. Satsuki is glad that the monsters are finally ready. The girl defeats one monster after another. She deftly uses her ball handling and melee skills to defeat monsters. Suddenly, one of them reached out his hand to her head, but she managed to quickly jump back and deal with him. Satsuki understands that fighting is much harder when there is no way to retreat. Will is about to use the skill. He swings his staff again and concentrates. Another orc comes here. The guy leaves it with Satsuki. He stands in battle readiness and gathers magical lightning around himself. Will then activated the lightning strike. All the orcs were struck by lightning at once, as if they were overcome by a chain reaction. The monsters immediately melted under such a blow. They were unable to act. The general let out another terrible roar. Satsuki noted that the orcs did not flee even after such an attack. Will explains that orcs, and even normal races, can survive the attack depending on where it hits. In the end, only 4 orcs remained. Satsuki asks to give them to her. The girl jumps and deals with the remaining orcs in 2 counts. At the end, only the general remains. He stands, occupying the entire width of the road. He suddenly rushes at the girl, barely touching her. Satsuki accepts the challenge. She says that the orc is not faster than her. At this point, the monster becomes enraged and seems ready to deliver his final attack. Here the orc gets worse. Satsuki, taking advantage of this, immediately strikes the monster with her blade. The orc is left without an eye and immediately falls to the floor. Will realizes that they seem to have dealt with the monsters. Satsuki exhales. She realizes that the high-ranking orc was very fast. She realizes that with her speed, she will never catch up to Eileen. Will doesn't like where this is going. Will takes off his cape and calls himself Satsuki. He then wraps his cape around her head and thanks her for her help. Will likes that Satsuki has set the bar high, but he doesn't think she should push herself so hard. The girl with the bandaged head asks the boy's question again. Will explains that it would be terrible if the girl lost her life because she exhausted herself. Satsuki wanted to object, but calmed down. A few moments later, she screamed. She says she doesn't care, but she thanks the guy anyway and goes on her way. Meanwhile, Finola explains the reason Will and Satsuki went ahead. She believes that they wanted to take on the role of sacrifice to give the elves time to heal. Finola enthusiastically asks the elves not to relax in order to honor the memory of the boys. Mia feels that the elves' expectations will be deceived very soon. Cirilla understands that everything will be as usual. Then Satsuki and Will come to meet the girls. Cirilla wondered what kind of things had happened on the battlefield since Satsuki had come out with her head wrapped up. Lafania was worried when she saw this. She wondered how much Satsuki had to go through. Satsuki says that it was quite easy. The guy asks her not to lie. The girl says that none of them were hurt, but on the other hand, it was all done by magic. You understand him, but it is believed that arrogance will make Satsuki careless. Cirilla felt as if she had seen the battle live. Mi still does not understand why the girl has her head covered. Finola asks what happened to the orcs. She thinks they all retreated. Will shakes his head and says they were all eliminated. Finola says there were no high-ranking orcs there. Will explains it was a small force led by a general. Finola didn't check and rushed to check. But before that, she asked to tell the right way. She believes that they don't need to move the base yet, since the guys have such power at their disposal. Will explains that everything went well because they gave it their all. Satsuki asks why the orcs don't all attack at once. The boys realize that there are more than 100 orcs, and they are scattered across other elven villages. Cirilla understands that William must explain everything properly to Satsuki, otherwise she will not understand. Will asks Satsuki to imagine that she has 3 brothers who are herding sheep, but they run away. In this case, should they team up to catch the sheep? Satsuki thinks that they would have split up in that case. The girl understands that the orcs consider them sheep. Cirilla understands that since the entire squad of orcs did not return, from now on they will see them as wolves, not sheep. Will believes that if he were the leader, he would send a small platoon in his place. At the same time, he would order some to return to report if things went badly. The girl asks how many there should be in a small platoon. The guy explains that 3 combined small squads are about 30 to 50 orcs in total. Also, the commander of this platoon will probably be higher in rank than the general, most likely an orc lord. And an orc lord is equal in strength to Satsuki. Depending on this, the emperor could make different orders. Satsuki understands that the emperor must be at Eileen's level. Finola understands everything. She thinks they should move quickly. A dark night has come. A group of elves and the boys are moving through the forest. They walk in an even formation behind Finola. Will knows that if the orcs attacked them right here, they would be in for a hard time. Will is still on guard, but still uncomfortable. He asks Finola to take a break for a while. The boy wanted to take a walk in the sky. He went away. Lifania explains to her mother that William can go water the flowers. She says that humans eat and drink much more than elves. Finola understood and thought she was being a bit rude. Will folded his clothes neatly under the leaves. He stands naked in the middle of the forest and uses the night vision skill. Suddenly, all the dark trees lit up and became visible as clearly as during the day. The guy finds this interesting. Here he used the metamorphosis spell. Suddenly, the guy turns into a bird. He rises high into the sky. Will realizes that it has been a long time since he last flew like this in the sky. From a bird's eye view, it is clear that there are no orcs nearby. He notices a light in the distance and assumes that this is the elven village that was attacked. The guy reads that it's worth checking out. He flies and wonders who captured the village. The guy was horrified. He saw a chopped up village. Orcs were sitting by the tree trunk, gobbling up the remains of the villagers. There were girls sitting near them. They were shaking with fear for their lives. Will tells himself to calm down because he shouldn't do anything alone. He notices an orc on the hill who was larger than the others. As it turned out, it was the orc emperor. Will looks at him and notices that the orc was able to notice him. Eileen and her team enter the cave. She remembers that last time there were orcs. She wonders what will happen the third time. The guy says that there is nothing to be done about it because such orders are given by the king. The girl exhales and says that this should be normal. Eileen thinks it will be good practice for the boys. She pats the boy on the shoulder and tells Harry that eventually he wants to graduate and become a knight. The boy confirms. Eileen doesn't sense any orcs around the boys. The boys are in a field. Eileen asks if the old man has noticed a large army of orcs. The man says that there were several elves there. With whom they hung out, he saw them with his old eyes. Harry explains that the man said that elven troops were heading to the area. Eileen is surprised that the guy is so sociable. He explains that he simply grew up in the area. Eileen helped the old man with her hand as a sign of gratitude. She was going to go see a large group of elves and asked the boys to stay in the village. They exclaimed and said that they could not stay and leave her alone. Suddenly, Eileen says that the guys are in the way, and it will be easier for her to escape alone if something happens. The guys were struck to the very heart by these words. Meanwhile, at night, turning into a bird and followed the neighboring village. He noticed Will and looked at him. Suddenly, he raised his finger up. Will realizes that the orc is on a completely different level. Perhaps the orc simply noticed the eagle flying around so late, but Will probably shouldn't go any closer to them. The guy flew on. Suddenly, he notices Eileen and wonders why she is there. The bird lands next to the girl, and she is frightened. The boy turns into a human and asks the girl why she is here. He appears before her without clothes, and the girl recognizes Will. The guy grabs her hand and tells her that they need to get out of here quickly, because staying too close to the main village is dangerous. The girl wants to ask why the guy is naked, but he asks her to leave the conversation for later. The boy and the girl walked quite far from the village. Eileen was embarrassed by the boy's appearance. Will noticed that the girl was acting strangely. He asked if she was okay. Eileen was confused and asked if she really needed to spell it out. Will understood everything from the look on Eileen's face. He apologizes for her and explains the topic, that it happens when he uses metamorphosis. He didn't realize it because of the fresh air. Eileen is about to thank the guy for showing her something. She asks why the guy is in this place. The girl tells everything. Will realizes that this was the king's order. Eileen remembers the previous situation and says that she simply cannot forgive these orcs. The guy realizes that the girl saw what happened to other villages around. Will reports that he cannot handle that many enemies on his own. Destroying the orcs in the cave should be the first priority, and there is no reason to fight the entire army. Eileen called out to Will. She was saying that she could give a reward to the boys that she could personally single out. It wouldn't be a request from the country or her own selfish feelings. The guy looked at the girl calmly. Eileen extends her hand to him and tells him of her intention to save the elves from this hell. She asks him if the guy will lend her his power. He responded with a refusal to the girl's enthusiastic attitude. The guy explains that he does not want to risk his life because of such feelings. He believes that strong emotions towards the matter can distort the judgment of the situation. Eileen seemed to have lost her mind and only agreed with the guy. She felt incredibly awkward. And now she feels like she got it all wrong. The girl believes that if she always fought for a feeling, then even 100 lives wouldn't be enough for her. Now Eileen is going to go her own way. The guy called her, but she didn't answer. Now he feels like he couldn't get through to her. Will told Eileen that she was wrong. The girl asked him not to say anything else because her heart might not be able to handle it. The guy says that he just doesn't want to share the same feelings as the girl. Will explained that in order to save the elves, he would act according to his own judgment, while Eileen would act according to her own feelings. There might be a line where Will would have to stop, but until then, they could work together. Eileen remembered then that the boy had always been the misunderstood man. Eileen understood everything. She is going to join the guys as soon as she finishes her preparations. She asked the guy to tell her the location of the shelter. They ate each other's hands. Now they are allies. The boy explores the forest from a bird's eye view again. He wonders how he can take care of these orcs. From what he saw, the orcs' numbers had dwindled. In comparison, they only had 20 people, including the elves, so they needed to look for help from other villages. Again, he says that even if all the warriors are gathered around, they will reach 100. Thus, the guys will only be half the number of orcs. In this case, if the elves throw a direct challenge, then they will be defeated. Here, Lefania explains that elves have agility and magic at their disposal. For example, in a narrow corridor or in a heated battle, elves will not be able to fight effectively. If only the elves could use light and agile moves against the orcs. Will considers his options. He realizes that the orcs have 2 more fighting forces than them. The most important thing is how they deal with the orc commander. Will realizes that once the commander is gone, the orcs will ultimately be left uncoordinated and will no longer be able to deal with the elven forces. It takes a small group of capable people to realize this. The group of Satsuki, Cirilla, and Mia is perfect for this. Will flies towards his village. He must hurry to the others. However, he remembers that he forgot to take his clothes with him, so he had to go back. The elves are resting in the forest. Satsuki became a little bored. Here the girl turns to Lefania with a request to teach her how to fight with her legs. The girl remembers the mutual promise of training, which will be useful in battle. But then Lefania became despondent. She doesn't understand why Satsuki keeps saying bang. The girl is upset that Satsuki doesn't understand anything that is said to her. Cirilla explains that Satsuki is not the type to listen. Mii jumps a few times. She turns to Lefania and asks if this is what she said. Here Mii, after a short preparation, jumps high, reaching the tree branch. Lefania agreed. Satsuki was surprised that the girl could do it. Cirilla realized that Satsuki had better give up. Lefania noticed Mia's talent. Mia realizes that using all the joints of her body will actually increase her strength. The girl gently landed on the ground. She still says that she would like to learn how to use the aura. Here Lefania cries out about her strong desire to learn. Here she hugs Mia and says that she prefers to teach her. At this point, Satsuki gets angry. Lefania is going to teach Mia so that she can become a powerful warrior. The girl explains that she is a thief. Cirilla suggests that Satsuki learn from Mia. Satsuki explains that she can teach her how to use aura perfectly. Cirilla explains that just saying bam is not enough. Now Lefania is ready to begin training. Lefania explains that the girl should feel her aura as bam. Mii realizes that this is not much different from Satsuki's explanation. Lefania explains that the girl's body feels different every day, and there are days when she feels heavy, and sometimes it's the other way around. The girl agrees. As it turned out, everyone uses the aura subconsciously. For example, on a hard day, the aura moves in a different direction, and on an easy day, the aura flows in one direction. All the girls were surprised after such an explanation. Mia wonders how to use it in this case. Lefania explains that it is necessary through training. It is necessary for her to come to a state where it will always seem to her that today is an easy day. Mii explains that it's very simple. Lefania advises to just keep running forever. The girls did not understand this advice at all. They were confused by the word forever. Lefania explains that if the girl continues to run, there will come a time when her body will feel truly light. Lefania believes that the girl should imprint this feeling in her memories in her mind, so that she can pull this feeling out at any time. Lefania reminds them of the advice to keep running forever. But the girls are still not inspired. Lafania takes Mia's hands and encourages her to do her best. Meanwhile, Will flies through the night forest. He is almost at the elves. The boy notices that rain clouds are heading their way. At this rate, it's going to rain on them. Suddenly he notices a rustling sound from the trees. He understands that something is approaching. The guy did not see it from a bird's eye view, and guesses that this mysterious creature was hiding in the bushes. From the middle of the forest, some sounds were emitted. The guy, clutching his staff, wondered who was calling them, probably by the steps. Most likely, it was an elf. However, he should be on the alert and wait for them to approach. If only Mia was with him. At that moment, cat ears flew past him. The one he was thinking about appeared right in front of him, rushing forward. He was clearly shocked by this. The girl rushed forward headlong. The boy tried to call her, but she didn't listen. An elf ran behind her, shouting at her to run even faster. Suddenly, she froze in place and looked back at the boy, apparently hearing him. The girl blushed and, not understanding whether it was a question or a statement, congratulated the guy on his return. But he did not understand whether he had gone anywhere at all. Later, this elf was lying on the ground, and her head was covered with her own hair. It was Lafania. There were several other girls standing around her, asking her if everything was okay. The others thought she was dead. It turned out she was embarrassed because William saw her as a very stern instructor. At that moment, the boy asked if he could tell her about the results of his adventure. They had not managed to find any orcs nearby, and their main forces were in the main village. Most of the elves were being held captive. It turned out that they really were just scouts. Frankly, he doesn't want any of them to see this. They won't forgive them. One of the girls called out to the hero, asking if he thought they could win. But he couldn't say for sure, but their chances are very high. They have information about the enemy, and on the way he met Eileen. She offered them her help. Everyone was surprised by this. Did he really meet her? It turned out she was here for her own reasons, but help from this monster wouldn't hurt. He was right when he called her a monster. Princess Deli was here. He was surprised by this fact too. She would arrive as soon as she had finished her preparations. The others asked who Eileen was. Was she another adventurer? He asked if they had heard of a country called Graysburg. It was a human state. And she turned out to be the princess of this state. The princess is a monster. One of the girls was surprised by the fact that she was a person of royal blood and asked why. He said it as if he had brought a friend with him. He, as if not listening, said that he also noticed clouds on the way to them. Most likely, it will rain. You looked at the sky. Is it really going to rain? But they haven't finished preparing yet. This is bad. It will be dangerous if they get sick. Their health is everything. On the road and in the battle with bad health, everything can end very badly. What should they do about it? At this time, Mrs. Eileen gave the order to her people to go home. They knew she was very strong, that she was still a young girl. They couldn't let her go to a dangerous battle alone and run away. At that moment, she told them to attack herself. If they defeat her, she will allow them to join in, and she had better do it quickly because she doesn't have much time. The guards, trembling, began to draw their swords and told Lady Eileen to get ready. Literally, in a moment, they were already lying on the ground defeated. She, satisfied, put the sword back into the sheath, thinking that she had finally won. But the knights found the strength and attacked her from behind, holding her back. She began to throw them in different directions, asking where they even learned to fight like that. One of the knights lying on the ground gathered up some sand and swung it at the princess. She asked him if he really wanted to throw sand at her. He replied that he was very sorry. The others who were holding her were shouting at him to do it already. They would do everything they could to stop her. She said they had bad manners. In that case, she decided not to hold back either. A moment later, all the knights were back on the ground, and she, evening out her breathing, said that only luck would help them. And in that same second, she was off, moving forward. She was wasting time, she was late. I wonder if Will was waiting for her. She remembered something very embarrassing, and her face turned red. Because she lost her concentration, she crashed into a tree, which, from the force of the blow, fell to the ground along with the root. It was quite painful. For heaven's sake, it was all because Will had appeared before her like that. As she screamed at the sky, it started raining. He was very cold. But she tried to find a place where she could hide. She hoped that the elves were okay, because they did not tolerate him well. She saw some kind of dome nearby and headed towards it. She reached out to him and saw elves inside, lighting a fire, and there was no rain nearby. It did not understand what was happening. Others, seeing her, called her inside. After all, she was soaking wet. The princess asked why there was no rain inside. It turned out it was because of a magic called cottage. The girl with cat ears asked Cyrilla if she knew anything about it. She was surprisingly calm, having seen a new kind of magic. She praised Mia, saying that she was good for asking. She secretly read the Book of Magic. Mia asked why she didn't just ask Will to explain everything to her. But that would have been too awkward, and there was another reason. Will was shocked when he saw the book. He was heading towards the girls, saying that this was a magic textbook in her hands. Did she know that there were at least 20 more recommended books? He could give them to her next time. That was why she hid the book from him. But she can't hold so many books, so it's not worth it. Will called Eileen. She, all wet, looked at him admiringly, saying that he hadn't changed at all. She was dazzling and watched him tenderly. The guy noticed that the rain was quite heavy. Even changing clothes was not enough. The princess was about to say that everything was fine, but at that moment, she sneezed. He paid attention to her while taking off his clothes. The girl asked why he was undressing again, but he just wanted to give her clothes so she could wrap herself up. The girl blushed, and he asked her why and what happened, but she answered that nothing. The girls watching were embarrassed. Lafania seemed to like Will. The other one didn't agree with that. She thought Lafania was a little different. At that moment, the princess, who was behind them, asked what they were talking about. The girls jumped up nervously from surprise. They began to justify themselves that they had not discussed anything like that, and pressed something into the princess's hands, saying that she needed to hurry up and change. The princess, having finally changed her clothes, was warming her hands by the fire. Mia came up to her and asked if she was cold, and she replied that she was perfectly fine. Then another girl came up to her, asking if she was hungry. They had some elven food left. She was holding a tray of food in her hands. It was the first time the princess had seen something like that. She took one portion and took a bite. It was very tasty. Suddenly, it occurred to her if she could just sit there. The girl with the tray had said she needed a good rest. That was what William had told them. They couldn't let her freeze. Other girls were coming under the dome, elves in wet cloaks. It turned out that they were the remaining elven warriors. It seemed that they were arriving immediately, but steadily. One of them looked in their direction. She approached the girl and thanked the man for everything. At first, she did not understand what she meant, but then she remembered the moments in the cave. She asked the warrior how her wounds were. It turned out that everything was fine. Everything on the body had already healed, but everything was not so good in the soul. If they had been a little faster, maybe it would have been possible to prevent everything. But the elf didn't think so, saying that everything was fine. She would just kill orcs over and over again until she felt relief. Already quite angry, she walked away alone. The princess, who was watching this, became sad. She said that they had to hurry and do something already, but in any case, now they had to get themselves in order and save their strength, especially the princess. Saying this, Cyrilla clenched her fists. Eileen understood this. She looked sadly at the ground. The atmosphere between them clearly became tense, and Will, who was running past them, did not even stop. The girls looked at him a little annoyed, and one of them grabbed his hood, drawing his attention to herself. She asked where he was going. He was planning to do some reconnaissance, but she immediately told him he couldn't do that. He used cottage magic and something else before that. He works too much alone. And Mia could do the reconnaissance. She started to take off his cloak, not giving him time to come to his senses. They couldn't let their main strike force act alone. Mia will also be able to practice running constantly. The girl asked her not to get too tired. Mia asked not to worry about her, she would act carefully, and ran to the side. In any case, the rest of us need to rest a little. Mai sat on a huge tree branch, watching the sky. Morning was just around the corner, and it was time to go back. As soon as she said this, she saw the familiar elven warrior passing below. Was she really on reconnaissance, but why? Her ears began to twitch. She saw 3 orcs off to the side. That was too many for one elf, but if they didn't notice her, she could leave safely. But that girl clearly had no plans to leave. She instantly pointed her bow at the monsters. Mia didn't understand what she was doing. The enraged elf was aiming at the orcs. What should Mia do? As soon as the sun began to shine, Will opened his eyes. He blinked a couple of times and, sitting up, turned his head to the side. He saw Cyrilla's morning prayer. She seemed to be all aglow. The other elves, watching this, said what a goddess she was. The girl turned to the boy and wished him good morning. He asked if this was where faith began, but she had no idea what he was talking about. The hero looked back at the pile of clothes. He asked where Eileen was now. It turned out that when Cyrilla woke up, Lady Eileen was gone. She and Satsuki must have gone to train. Okay, Satsuki, but Eileen is responsible. She probably did it just for fun. Satsuki is just being played with. Is the monster princess striking again? Well, she must have been training constantly. It's impossible to be like that naturally. Satsuki has made herself a nasty opponent. There's nothing harder than dealing with a hard-working genius. And yet, the most amazing thing about Satsuka is that she doesn't give up, and she's also ready to face challenges. It also reminded him that he had recently managed to use 4 more magic arrows in the battle with Alice. It seemed like his mana was increasing. The mana he can use increases. This is very interesting. It seems that he was becoming very excited about this fact. Seeing this, the girl asked him to calm down, saying that she understood everything. She sighed heavily. She feels uncomfortable seeing all these monsters around her. The guy didn't understand what kind of monsters she was talking about. Wasn't Eileen the only monster here? But from the girl's point of view, he was the main monster here. He made her realize that she was just ordinary. No talent, no hard work. Well, for him to know, she was known for her talent in the temple. The guy thought about it. Did she really want to be on the hero's side and not the monster's side? She asked him if he was even listening to her. She just had to choose whose side she wanted to be on. It turned out he was just trying to joke. She and Mia are talented enough. Besides, a person's worth isn't determined by their abilities alone. Comparing yourself to another person to decide whether you're inferior or not is stupid. After all, isn't the world controlled by an elite, someone like Will's father? He believed that from the very beginning the people around her were irreplaceable. She didn't have to worry about it. She called him. His expression became strange. Did he really think it was because of his relationship with his father? He certainly thought so. Now it became clear why Eileen had asked her to consult William. The elite, such as the king, Eileen, and the head of the court magicians, they would not be able to console him because of their status in society. But she could. She called him again, continuing the conversation. She asked if she could give her opinion on the matter, and he said that she could. She asked for forgiveness, but his opinion sounds like empty chatter. People in this world who don't understand logic only eat up resources. Like bandits who burn villages and steal food. If things get really bad, they'll drag down people who offer to make the world a better place. Is there honor in admitting incompetence? That's what he wonders. Like when the knight is prevented from catching bandits by the villagers themselves. Her way of thinking is close to his father's. He doesn't like it, or maybe he despises this way of thinking. But that's exactly why Cyrilla thought they were dragging him down. The guy looked at her questioningly. He didn't understand how they had gotten to this point. She was afraid that there were other, more suitable people for the role of his companion. He hadn't expected this and didn't know how to react. Words like a more suitable companion, that's nonsense. You can only laugh at it. However, even if he says that, it won't resonate in her heart. It will sound like empty talk. But if he doesn't say anything, it will mean that he partially agrees with her opinion and will go into a world he doesn't want to be in. No, he doesn't want that at all. That's not the point. Now he seems to understand. Cyrilla thinks like his father. But he doesn't want to part with her, Satsuki, or Mia. But can he convey it in simple words? He won't be able to convey it if he doesn't show it. Then should he show? He didn't know how, so he wrapped the girl's head with some kind of thing, and she didn't understand what was happening at all. He apologized, saying that he was confused too, but it was obvious anyway. He didn't know how to explain it to him. He wanted to go on new adventures with them. Of course, it was different from the adventures he had dreamed of. Before, he had thought of a team of a brutal samurai, a tough thief, and a calm priest. And he got 3 girls. One is always in a bad mood, another has a terrible sense of humor, and the third is just crazy. But for him, they are all his real, irreplaceable friends. He does not want to judge who is suitable and who is not. Otherwise, their friendship is over. That's what he doesn't want. He doesn't want to lose them. That's what he said out loud. The girl laughed. She was asking him what he was thinking about so hard. She didn't know he could make such a face. It even made her feel better. Of course, she also felt like she wanted to be with everyone, and she understood what he was trying to say. He, Satsuki, and me should be together. When they started talking about Mia, they realized something very important. They began to wonder when she would finally return. At this time in the forest, the elf was pointing her bow towards the orcs. Me, sitting on top of the tree, thought that if he went and stopped her, the orc would see them both. If he ran away, he could meet up with the others, and together they could destroy them. But if at least one of them leaves, they will be able to find out where the elves are and where they are going. If she was caught, she would have to kill them or die, or abandon this elf. At that moment, having fired an arrow at one of the monsters, she threw her cloak away. Using magic, she directed it towards the orcs. Watching all this from the side, Mia couldn't stand it and came to the rescue. The elf was surprised to see a familiar face. She clearly didn't expect this meeting. Mia shouted at her to get upstairs faster. Already sitting on the tree, they looked down at the orcs, who were furiously pounding the tree. The warrior asked Mia what she was doing in this place. But it was Mia who should have such a question. Was she really trying to die? But since she might die, she shouldn't drag Mia into this, especially since she already owes her. But now they have no choice but to destroy them, one by one. The monsters began to hit the tree with even greater force, trying to knock it down. And finally, they succeeded, and the girls, having managed to jump, found themselves on the ground. They scattered in different directions, hoping to knock down the orcs, but they all moved together towards the elf warrior, attacking her. Mia was surprised by this. They drove the girl against a tree, surrounding her from all sides. One of the monsters struck, and the blow landed on the girl's hand. It was so strong that it instantly darkened. She began to cry from the pain. They lifted her up by her wounded arm and mocked her. They were already preparing a new attack. I was going to destroy the elf. But Mia got there in time, attacking the one who was about to strike. They let their guard down, turning away from the elf. At that moment, she took advantage of the opportunity and used her magic on one of them. Mia attacked again, knocking one of them down. The other two got angry and, throwing the elf aside, headed towards Mia. She looked at the wounded girl and gathered her strength to fight with new forces. There were two left, and the elf was no longer in any condition to fight. 1-on-2. Does she have a chance to defeat these orcs? The orc swung. He tried to hit the girl, but she managed to jump away in time. What should she do, other than fight? This was very bad. The monsters surrounded her from all sides. She managed to dodge other people's blows, and tried to deliver her own. She managed to cut one of them, but this did not produce the desired effect. She might be able to win if she kept up the good work, but her stamina was already at its limit. Besides, she had to hurry and give first aid to the elf warrior. If she had the same skills as Satsuki, even she could win. She had to move quickly, but her body had become heavy. At least if she could use aura. Definitely an aura. She remembered that everyone uses aura subconsciously all the time. If you use it, your body will become light. That's what she needs. Trying to focus, she dodged the other's blows again. Her body really did feel lighter. She had Lafania to thank for that. Now all she had to do was strike. It was impossible for Mia to fight like Satsuki. The only way to compensate was to become fast. The monsters looked at each other. Remembering Lafania, the girl thought about something. The monsters stopped looking at each other and ran in the other direction. She was shocked and didn't understand what was going on. Why were they just running away? Was it to report to the orc headquarters? She can't let them do this. She screamed at them to stop, and immediately headed towards them. But it turned out that because of the aura, she was moving too fast. She did not expect the speed to be so great. She crashed into one of the orcs, knocking him to the ground. When she opened her eyes, she found herself upside down near a tree trunk. The orc she had just encountered was shaking and unable to get up from the ground. Was she imagining it? But she definitely wasn't. She had just used all her joints equally. Then she should try again. She instantly used speed and ran between the orcs, cutting one of them. It turned out to be difficult. The orcs tried to escape, and she advanced on them, striking. The orcs were already badly wounded, and she decided to finish it all with one blow. And now they were lying on the ground, defeated. Finally, it was all over. She fell tiredly to the ground to rest a little. But she immediately got back on her feet, because she needed to help the warrior. But her body didn't obey her at all, which is why she fell back to the ground. Fatigue is no joke. But she needs to get the elf back to the shelter. But suddenly, it hit her that she really couldn't move after coming this far. But it was impossible. Mia had to move. She always finished everything. She kicked her legs, hoping it would help somehow. At that moment, she heard someone's voice. It was the princess. She called Satsuki, saying that she found them. She came closer to her and asked if she was okay. They saw the dust clouds when they were training, so they came. They didn't expect to meet them here. There didn't seem to be any injuries. She was upset that they had already been killed. She wanted to fight too. Mia even got a little angry at these words. But she decided to forget about it and, pointing her finger, said that the elf needed to be saved. They returned to the camp, where Cerelia treated the injured woman's wounds. The team standing nearby simply watched. Mia was shaking all over. Regardless, she still asked how the elf was feeling. It turned out that there were no serious wounds anymore. She was fine and would wake up soon. Mia finally exhaled with relief, falling to her knees on the ground. But to think that she was able to use aura for the first time in such a situation. Perhaps she was focusing too much on the target. Some people use aura too often because of this. But Mia didn't understand what she had to do to make things okay. The princess suggested that she just get used to it. Until then, she should find her limits, like how long she could use her aura or how many times. She herself was curious about her limit. Eileen, leaving, said that it seemed that everything was fine now and then, they should go help the other elves. Satsuki agreed with her. Will approached Mia, asking where approximately she had fought the orcs. Putting the map on the ground, she pointed with her finger to where it was approximately. But is it possible that they will understand everything, because 3 orcs did not return? But according to Philona, everything should be fine. The elven warriors who had gone to ask for support had already begun to return to them. The meeting place would be that cave. The girl understood that they did not know about their move. That's why the contacts had been watching the cave since last night. If the elves show up, they'll lead them to their new base. And if the orcs come, they'll hide and let them pass or run away. Mia found the orcs somewhere near the cave. The enemies already knew about it, because they fought them there. Hearing this, Mia fell into a trance, and the hero asked her what happened. She hadn't thought about it before. If she had run away, would it have been better? Then the elf would not have suffered. At that moment, the one they were talking about woke up and said that it was not so. Mia won and fought on her own until the end. To be honest, at first the elf thought, why should Mia save her, who came to die? And when she was left alone, she just needed to run away. But she didn't give up, even though she was at a disadvantage. Mia was in complete despair. The warrior was inspired by her, and she began to fight. Now she will live. With his long elven life. And he will never forget Mia. She fought for her life and is her little savior. She fought and gave her life. And now the one she had once saved would repay her debt. Having said these last words, the girl fell to the ground again with her eyes closed. It seemed she had fallen asleep. The guy patted Mia on the head, asking if this wasn't great, but he immediately took his hand away. Sorry about that. He thought that now she would be angry because of his action, but she was extremely calm, because now she was very happy. A girl passing by called out to Satsuki and the princess of the human kingdom. But she asked me to call her simply Eileen. Now they were helping with the housework. Since Mia was doing everything she could, they didn't want to sit idle either. They told her that Mia was able to use aura. The girls saw that Lafania began to cry. She is very happy because she worked so hard and did it. She became a real warrior. Although she is a thief, now wherever she goes, she will be fine. Does she want to marry her off to someone? Li Fan thought for a moment after the mention of marriage. She asked how many wives William had. Princess. I don't understand what she meant. She shook Satsuki, asking if Will had gotten married, but she hadn't heard anything like that. Then Lafania asked if they were part of his harem. She was sure that people were polygamists. The princess screamed. Where did she get that from? She knows that there are such people, but they are not one of them. Then Lafania realized that she was wrong. She just wanted to join in when all this was over. At these words, the princess even trembled. At that moment, someone jumped out of the bushes, shouting at the top of their lungs that something bad had happened. It turned out that the orcs had advanced. The moment of victory was brief. A new battle was coming. The princess watched as Satsuki tried to imitate the elven gait and heels. It was truly the calm before the storm. Apparently, a group of orcs had moved out towards their previous refuge in the cave. And the commander, it seems, is an orc lord. They can use aura, and presumably the defensive aura they use is pretty strong, and there will be about 30 to 40 orcs there. And this detachment is only a third of the main orc forces. The main orc forces are about 100 units. Previously, they could send one detachment of 13 units, but now the Emperor is ready to send a whole platoon. They are incredibly cruel. If they had all gone together, they could have attacked their base and rescued the prisoners. What should they do now? If it was just one platoon, it would be easiest to attack them head-on. The girl agreed with him. They only had about 30 elven warriors now. Their numbers were almost the same. But they were almost exhausted. It was also about reducing risk. It seems that the orcs were carefully instructed and must report if anything happens. So, they still don't know about their real power and exact location. That's a good advantage. We can't let them find out. To minimize the damage and avoid any information leaks, they need to be killed. Every single one of them. She said so, of course, but will everything really be fine? Despite the fact that their numbers are almost the same. Well, the sizes of elves and orcs are significantly different. Some places are muddy from yesterday's rain. If they want to fully utilize the elves' agility, they'll need to make some changes. But the non-hero actually thought that everything was not bad now. The girls were surprised. Later, one of them was chased by a crowd of orcs. She approached a cave-like crevice. Will waved at her from the side, using stealth. He congratulated her on her return and asked how the situation was. She replied that they would most likely be caught. Orcs are hunting elves. Mia regretted making Lafania do all the work. She replied that everything was fine. After all, Mia had been out scouting all night yesterday. She was indeed resting in her backpack, but she had already rested enough, and now she was in great shape. She didn't know what to do, and Satsuki suggested the idea of a backpack so she could sleep and move at the same time. Now they could see the orcs moving towards them. Will used illusion magic to create a copy of Lafania right in front of the orcs. She agreed that it was exactly like her. True, one detail was slightly different. He simply confused her and Finola's body types. Mia replied that it was good that Eileen wasn't around right now. She would obviously be preoccupied with thoughts like that. He didn't understand what she meant at all, but she told him not to think about it. The orcs fell for their trap and followed Illusion into the cave. They watched from the side. They saw the orc lord. Will sent Mia ahead. They noticed that the orcs were not moving. It was exactly as the hero had said. They were indeed wary of traps. They probably thought that the traps were in the cave itself, and all thanks to that illusion. Now that they've stopped moving, it'll be easier to hit them with magic and arrows, and it looks like the mud washed away by yesterday's rain still remains. In that case, Elf wanted to take her position. The guy said to stay vigilant. They still hadn't won. She thought that at first it was a struggle without hope of victory. I wonder how it will end. The hero was called from behind. It was the princess. She said that the flank had been strengthened. It seemed that it was time to begin, but the princess seemed to be interested in something. She asked if he and Lafania had just been alone, and he had answered yes. At that moment he remembered Mia's words about, and that Eileen had not been with them when they created the illusion. He told her that even though they had common interests, he was grateful that she was here. So when the battle is over, he uses the illusion on her too. Apparently, he misunderstood the words of the others, and she clearly didn't understand what he meant. In any case, it's time for them to begin. According to the plan, the probability of him becoming a target is 90. But she told him not to be afraid and to rely on her. She will protect him no matter what. He used magic and directed it at the orc squad. He used the skill, Wizard. One of them noticed it, but didn't have time to do anything. The blow was already aimed at them. William said that it would be difficult for him to stop those who were out of reach of his magic. Last time there were 13 orcs, now there are 2 more. He was holding them back, but it didn't seem to be making much of a dent in the enemy's numbers. Everyone needed to be ready. He continued to strike at them, and the elves looked at him questioningly. Even the lord was wounded. And in the end, there were only a few left who were able to stand on their feet. He destroyed half of it. At that moment, the elves raised their bows, and, after the order, began to shoot at the survivors. Lafania shouted at them not to lose their vigilance, because there were still enemies there. They had to fight, even if only one orc remained. The orc lord was still on his feet, and he noticed the hero heading towards him. But the princess parried his blow. She was surprised that he could still fight. So she became his opponent. They attacked each other in turns. She noticed he had a strong protective aura. All her attacks were supposed to be fatal. She told the hero not to interfere. She wanted to take this orc on herself. He thinks it looks like she'll be okay, so he shoots a magic arrow at the other survivors. Satsuki also joined the fight against other powerful orcs. In any case, he needs to prepare in case things don't go according to plan. He noticed that the orc had already fallen to the ground and was defeated. If it weren't for the injuries, it would be much more difficult. And then there's the orc emperor. They're pretty strong. It looks like the battle is over. The princess noticed that Mi had become faster than Satsuki. But next time they'll need to attack their base and the orc emperor. But he said not to worry about that. He has an idea of what to do with their base. After some time, they had finished everyone off. There were no survivors or casualties on the elven side. It turns out it was an easy victory. After these words, the elves thought that it was good that he was for them, and they would have to get along with the people. In that case, Lefania suggested taking a break, but Will said that they needed to continue. Apparently, he was going to attack the base and the Emperor himself right now. The offensive cannot be stopped. The girl screamed throughout the forest for him to first say what he meant. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Since they wiped out an entire platoon this time, the orcs will definitely suspect something is up, so since they have no information, now is the perfect time to strike. But that's not the point. Next time he should say it earlier. He's right. But even if they start to fear their power, what about Will himself? He had a third of his mana left. He tried not to waste it, but he used up about a third. It will take about 2 hours to restore it. Attacking when he's not in good shape isn't a bad idea. So it's better to wait until all the mana is restored. But what should they do if they decide to threaten the hostages? In that case, they won't be able to lift a finger. They will either have to abandon them or die themselves. They need to organize an attack and first of all save the hostages, otherwise they will be completely destroyed. They don't really have any choice. After these words, there was silence. The worried girl asked if everything would be as Will said. If they could attack and restore mana, everything would be much better. The elf thought about her words. Another girl approached from behind and asked Finola to step aside with her for a few words, and the other elves were busy taking their arrows out of the orcs' bodies. It couldn't be helped if they didn't want casualties. They'd better do as he said. But the girl didn't agree. She screamed at him to listen to her. The fact that he wasn't in the best shape meant he couldn't even defend himself properly. The princess asked to rely on her in this matter. Elf. They didn't even think that he would be in danger. Everything will be fine, because they are not alone. Even if he is hurt, they can also heal him. The elf thought that everything will be fine and blindly believed in it, but it is not so. She simply inserted everything at his discretion. They all argued among themselves, but she still decided that she had to do everything possible and went away from them. Mei thought about letting him sleep in her bag while they walked, like she did, so he could restore his mana to movement. But it turned out that it was physically impossible. The bag was small. Then they suggested stretching the fabric and carrying it together. Mia noted that the girl was a genius only when it came to such ideas, but they decided to try anyway. But the boy was already doubting that he would be able to sleep under such circumstances. The elf came up to them again with some kind of bottle, telling William to use it. It turned out to be an elven potion of magic. The hero's companion, seeing it, screamed. Could it really be something dangerous? In a sense, it really was. This potion is made from the juice of the world tree. Drinking it will restore your mana, costing 50 gold. This amount was completely insane, for just one potion. But they managed to take it from the treasury during the panic caused by the orc attack, and it seemed to be the right decision. But the guy was surprised that they just gave it away. But it was alright. Besides, for such mercenaries, the reward they had agreed on wouldn't be enough. She was grateful to them, but they still hadn't left the forest. After these words, the guy was wrapped in cloth, tied to a rope. Everyone wished each other luck in the decisive battle. Then the guy decided to explain the plan along the way. After some time, the girls walked forward, tied up. A huge orc led them ahead. Mii said that although he looked like an orc, he smelled like Will. Satsuki said that she could make a mistake and accidentally cut him. He replied that it would be great if the two of them calmed down a bit. The princess was worried about what would happen to his clothes. It turned out that this was an even easier spell than metamorphosis, camouflage, so it hides even clothes and equipment. And disguise only changes appearance. The princess was encouraged by the fact that he was still wearing clothes. Cirilla looked at the princess with strange eyes, and she asked her to stop. They had almost reached their destination. Some were worried about how they would find the Orc Emperor. It turned out that the hero had already sent the magic eye ahead, so everything was as usual. He drank the potion that the elves gave him and began to glow. Finally, having gathered his strength, he pointed his hand forward and told everyone to go. It was very absurd. At the entrance, they were met by another orc who saw a great catch. The hero replied that it was for the boss. No wonder, because the other one thought his catch was pretty tasty. But he doesn't remember him. They were already afraid that they would be exposed, but he was stupid enough. Just a little more, and if it weren't for the language borrowing spell, everything would have been worse. The other girl had already thought that the orc spoke human. Will had already explained this in the planning stage. He could speak a little with orcs. They will suspect that something is wrong if they talk too much. It is good that they act like prisoners. As they walked forward, they saw the orcs eating the elves. They were filled with anger, but they had to hold on. In the distance sat a huge orc. Most likely, he was not a simple one. The hero realized that it was time to contact the elves and informed them that they were already with the emperor. In that case, they began to move out. She asked them not to die for them even if they won and the team died. There was little happiness in that. Of course, he understood this and promised that he would definitely get a reward. Besides, he needed to work off the magic potion she gave him. She repeated to him that the potion was also part of the reward. If he did more for them, she would have to give him the entire treasure. They were getting closer to the emperor. He stopped eating, looked at those walking towards him. He said that the hero stinks. And it didn't smell like women, but like a human male. He threw him some of the uneaten food and asked who he was. At that moment, he cast a spell to free the girls from their robes. They all moved forward, towards the emperor. He was surprised that the man and Mial were together. Had they really come here to be eaten by him? He took out a huge club and noticed that the three girls could use aura. He was so interested in the prey that it came to him. The princess noted how brave he was. The emperor shouted throughout the area, calling for all his soldiers to come to him, and he would kill anyone who did not come within 30 seconds. It seems he decided to take them by force of numbers. Or he decided that it would be bad to meet them face to face. Seeing their strength, he assessed the situation calmly. He was unexpectedly smart. But even if so, they have their own plan. Although the explanation of the plan was not very clear, everything was established that they use some kind of magic intended for such situations. Even if he calls for help from the orcs in the settlement. The hero used spatial gate magic. It was too late for the orc emperor anyway. The formidable enemy was isolated. This was their preparation for battle. To get to the orc emperor, they used disguise and borrowed languages, and a magic link to pretend to be prisoners. The disguise will change his appearance, borrowing a language, so that if they are stopped, they can say that everything is fine. And the magic link will help them pretend to be prisoners, so that if they destroy their emperor, the orcs will be confused, because their subordination would be violated. The elven warriors needed to surround the enemy camp in advance. First, they will use the dimensional gate once they reach the orc emperor, so they will isolate them before they gather together. Immediately after that, he would cast a strengthening spell, and his companion would cast a blessing. The other girl didn't understand why they couldn't cast the spell in advance. But it turned out that they didn't know how long it would take to get there. And it would be a waste of energy if the effect wore off before they reached their target. Mana had to be conserved. Moreover, he may not be alone there, but they still want to gain an advantage by hitting him first. It seems they should do all this wisely, like last time. True, their route to the orcs was quite difficult. The princess apologized for him, since he was the shortest anyway. Back to the present moment, when they were in front of the orc emperor. Eileen and the orc emperor are equal in strength, as are Satsuki and the orc lord. But there is another lord and 3 ordinary orcs. Something needs to be done about them, otherwise the forces will be unequal. The forces cannot be equal. Before sending them to another dimension, you need to remove the extra ones. The girls started the fight while the guy stood with the staff, wondering what damage he could do to him. The angry emperor headed towards them. He had excellent reflexes. He told them not to get cocky. If they dodged, they would lose their chance for a surprise attack. The princess apparently understood this, and this angered the emperor. He tried to strike and hit her on the left arm. Satsuki was dealing with other orcs more successfully at this time, as well as Mia, who wasn't far behind. But she shouldn't have used up all her aura. They successfully carry out a sudden attack, and Eileen quickly reacted, but her arm was still damaged. Satsuki started to fight off one of the lords, but she still hadn't finished with the usual before they started to attack. The emperor called the princess impudent. Did she really want to fight the emperor with one hand? As a knight and a princess, she was obliged. He learned that she was a human princess. She introduced herself to him as the first princess of the Graysrod line, Eileen Graysrod, and she swore on her name that she would crush the orc emperor. He didn't understand who people thought they were. There was a squabble between them. The princess screamed, "Who does he think he is?" continuing to seize the elven settlement. They fought and cursed at the same time. The orc explained that the elves had decided to settle on these lands, and they called their territory their country. And what's worse, they would be hunted and killed if found, because they were evil. That's the only reason they're constantly being killed. The hero watched this in silence. The princess noted that orcs are also savages in relation to elves. Wasn't that evil? But the emperor said they just needed to eat to survive. Why is that evil? Do they realize that they can't even reproduce unless they use females from other species? If they want to blame someone, then they should blame God who created this world. After listening to him, the princess said that she takes back her words. Now it will be a war, and the existence of the orcs is at stake. The girl standing nearby used her blessing on her comrades. It was a miracle, giving goals divine protection, although it may only calm and give hope. But it is better than nothing. It is 10,000 times better than nothing, especially considering that Satsuki fights but can't win. If this divine protection is capable of influencing at least this, then one must play it safe and use it. He used a physical enhancement spell, aiming it at me. She didn't even understand at first what kind of power was filling her. It was like her whole body was improving. The hero shouted at her that she could now take on the Lord. If she couldn't do it, she was stupid. She headed straight for him. She couldn't do that before, and the blade didn't affect it at all, but she was able to win easily. The emperor told the princess that she had enough of running around, but he was already beginning to get used to the fact that she kept her distance from him. It was hard for them, and if things continued like this, things could get bad. The emperor hit her with his club. Everyone watched what was happening. She flew to the side. She was clearly in bad shape. Everyone understood that they needed to help as quickly as possible, but they had their own enemies. Eileen is in a very bad mood right now, but it's okay with her defense power. Even if she took a direct hit, she would definitely be fine, but if it was a fatal hit, it would be bad. But he shouldn't think about that. He will accept the outcome of this battle, whatever it is. The orc emperor scoffed. He had certainly hit her hard, but to be able to stand after she had taken his blow, that might even have amazed him. The hero noticed that the emperor thought he had already won, but it was too late. He used a physical blast on Eileen, who instantly raised her sword, dealing massive damage to her opponent's weapon. And that fell to pieces. The princess told him that the only one of them who would die would be the emperor himself. And she struck again. The emperor was defeated, and fell to the ground. Everyone looked at this in shock. Is it really true that we're done? The girl ran to the princess to heal her. As expected of Eileen, few knights could fight against the orc emperor with one hand. She turned to him with a smile, saying that it was good that he was safe. And immediately after these words, she fell unconscious. She was bleeding profusely. He remembered what he had been thinking about just recently, that he would accept the outcome of this battle, no matter what it was, that if this blow had been fatal, and that Eileen was very upset, but it was okay. Was this really the price of victory? Those who came up asked if the princess was okay. They were told that they could heal such wounds, but they did not know when she would regain consciousness. This was already encouraging. The hero uttered the name Eileen. At that moment, the spell that had been cast dissipated. They found themselves back on the field among many orcs. The orcs had already seen that the emperor had been defeated, but the heroes were also very exhausted. Will watched this. There were many orcs. It will be difficult to defeat them, but he will not allow them to harm his comrades anymore. He summoned fireball magic, wanting to destroy their spirit. The orcs who were about to fight looked back, seeing a huge ball in the sky, flying towards them. But it was too late. He was just crazy now. The elves were ordered to move in threes and destroy the orcs one by one. Since the elves had already started, they were lucky. Then they should have helped them. The hero summoned the fireball again. One of the monsters moved towards him, but Eileen, who had come to her senses, moved it out of the way. She could barely stand on her feet. He hugged her, lifting her to her feet. She was embarrassed and asked for forgiveness. It seemed that she had not yet fully recovered, but she was so happy. His spell had drawn the enemy's attention to them, and he was asking for forgiveness for that. Although it was rare, he could get angry. He lost his composure when he saw Eileen collapse. I wonder what would have happened if she hadn't woken up. In that case, she would have protected her with a force field. This answer was clearly not as well received as the previous one. The princess was interested in what was happening in the current situation. In terms of numbers, they were roughly equal, but it seemed that the orcs were in disarray due to the general's absence. In that case, you also need to help the others. The guy came up to Eileen, took her hand, and asked if she was really okay. She was clearly embarrassed. She was very happy now. She said that everything was really okay, but her hand was shaking. The guy thought it was because she hadn't recovered yet. In that case, she asked him to cover her if anything happened. He said he would. His comrades were fighting on the front lines. She was so glad that he agreed that she moved forward immediately. He looked at it, remembering some moment from his childhood. Orcs were easily defeated. They were excellent companions and easily defeated enemies. Watching them, others thought it was very cute. A few hours later, everyone was defeated. The elf handed them a bag, saying that if it weren't for their help, they would have been destroyed. There was no limit to her gratitude, and in the bag was their promised reward, but there was clearly more. They quickly noticed this. It turned out that the elf had decided to double the reward and hoped that they would accept it. 240 does. 204 day per person. 4 people, 80 gold per day for 2 days, for 2 days, 40 does, 100 vorti, and payment at the end, 200. If you add it up, you get 360 gold multiplied by. Total 740 coins. The cheap inn they usually stay at costs 2.5 silver coins with breakfast. 1 gold coin can easily cover 2 days, and then about 180 gold coins for each. They can do nothing for the whole year. The guy decided to check if they were sure, because there was a lot there. But if it weren't for the hero, everything would have been lost. Moreover, they are self-sufficient and they don't really need money. They are used only when trading with people, and it was with them that the deal was made. The guy understood and didn't argue anymore. If they say so, they will gladly accept the reward. The team stood near the bag of money, although to look at them. The elves said that for them, they are all heroes, and they are sure that the amazing feat of the great hero William and his squad will be passed down from generation to generation. One elf, whom Mia had recently saved, came up to her, saying that she was her little hero. She would never forget her. All the elves said goodbye to the heroes, waving goodbye. They are just beginning adventurers. They are far from heroes. For him, heroes are those people from books he looked up to as a child, but they recognized them as heroes so easily. Eileen told everyone that Will loved stories about heroes and he loved reading about them as a child. He tapped her on the head, saying that she shouldn't have told him that. The elf understood. Perhaps it is not love between them, but admiration. Now he cannot be equal to those heroes. He would not be able to fight to the end. She went up to the princess, hugged her, and said that they were all heroes to her anyway. She was extremely embarrassed. Then she ran up to the hero, kissing him on the cheek in thanks. She said that he was her hero too. Those nearby were a little shocked. The princess, watching this, was shaking. Could Will and Lafania really be together? Will himself asked to wait with the conclusions. He just didn't expect this. The princess became sad. He remembered the illusion again and called Eileen, reminding her of it, and then he created her illusion. Since they had known each other since childhood, he created an exact copy of her. The others did not understand what he was doing. The girl herself also did not understand whether she should be happy that he had created her to such a degree of precision. Was he really watching her? Still, she was happy about it. The partner who came up at that moment looked at Illusion and asked if it wasn't a guy. The princess noticed this and became even sadder. She tried so hard to fight the Orc Emperor, and she wasn't even considered a girl. He apologized, because he didn't mean anything bad. Ever since they were kids, he always treated her like a comrade, so it was a joke. The others realized how terrible it was. The princess felt even worse after hearing that they were just comrades. She should have known, but this was too much. But he always treated her like a girl. Hearing this, she felt a little better. He saw her torn clothes and began to take off his robe. She blushed again, asking why he was undressing. The hero explained that he had simply noticed that her clothes were very shabby and decided to lend her his cloak. She was glad. Everything was fine now. And about the elves. Although the orcs were destroyed, it does not mean that all their problems were solved, all the fallen and all the wounded. And all those who have lost their family, friends, people with physical and psychological problems. They probably have a mountain of problems to deal with. But that's a whole other story. And as for them, their story here ends, and they'll set off on a new journey. Now they arrived in the city of Atlatia. They sat at the table and drank tea. Finally, they could rest. But apparently their plan was not destined to come true, because at that moment a girl burst in with a joint mission. But someone was against it. Didn't they have enough money to rest now? Mia was also enthusiastic because it was her first joint mission. Will also agreed, saying that they should try. In the end, the last one who was against everyone stopped arguing. The task turned out to be about conquering monsters. At this point, she fell silent, and the others did not understand what was there. What puzzled Cyrilla so much and who is their target? And so they arrived in Norman, a mining town. It had been 2 days since they arrived here, and there were a lot of dwarves here. One of the girls was interested in whether the stoneworms they had recently talked about were similar to earthworms. The face was domineering, clearly indicating that the question was extremely stupid. When they looked at her questioningly, she simply answered that everything was fine. They had already parted with Eileen in the afternoon, who, all battered, came to her guards. She suggested that since they had finished their business here, they should rest in the capital, but Will said that they had to report on the mission's completion, since they had not yet reported it to Atlasia, and the capital was in a completely different direction. She clearly regretted not going to the capital. She thought about it every time. She said it didn't matter and they should just forget about it. The dark-haired girl laughed, saying that she remembered how she bought a lot of different souvenirs. She sheepishly replied that she bought them simply because they were cute. One of the men passing by decided to pester them, saying that they were weak, low-ranking, and were behaving as if they were going to a picnic. The people walking next to him told him to forget about them, because soon they would be gone. He laughed even harder, saying that this was very accurately said, because these newcomers do not even listen to the advice of their older comrades. Even though they were higher in rank, they were happy to give advice. He didn't look sad at all. Even though those people acted like elders, he felt nothing but contempt for them, no respect. Is their rank that cool? They're only one rank above them. Will explained that it's because many stop at that rank, so if you get there, you'll be treated like a full-fledged adventurer. The girl did not understand what his words meant. It turned out that in order to get a rank, you need to complete a rather difficult task. Therefore, for many, a task of a lower rank is quite enough. They began to climb the ladder, but the climb was very long. Was the rank advancement task really that difficult? He had heard that many people had lost their lives trying to complete it. Only a few would be able to advance to the next rank, which meant that the higher the rank, the fewer adventurers there were. That's the reality. That's why many D ranks are perfectly happy with the tasks at their level. He told the girls to be calm, on the mission. After all, it's only D rank, just like now, they E rank and above D rank often compete with each other. But even they can receive a quest at a level lower than C rank. The man who had been listening to him all this time, who was walking in front, began to insult him, asking if he was making fun of them. Was he really that cool that girls were following him? He got angry, grabbed him by the robe, and lifted him into the air. The girl's comrades who were watching this looked at him menacingly. Will's legs, which were hanging in the air, began to relax. At that moment, Satsuki grabbed the hilt of the katana, telling the elder that if he wanted to fight, she would be his opponent. Everyone around turned to look at them, a tense moment. Yui finally said that the pose certainly helped to relax the legs, but violence between adventurers was against the rules. The angry man asked him what he had said, but he apologized and said that it was nothing. However, being more experienced than them, he should know that fighting would not benefit anyone. After these words, he let him go to the ground and, angry, continued up the stairs. But they moved on. But the hero's condition became worse. He could not walk for so long. The comrades who noticed this started to talk among themselves, that it seemed that even he had a weakness. After all, he was not a superhuman, so it was logical. He was an ordinary person without magic. Even though Cirilla had minimal warrior training, she said she thought he was just using magic. Should have guessed earlier. Maybe not levitation or flight, but there is also a boost. Looks like he's back at it. But there wasn't much left to the destination. He didn't think he should use magic anymore. Cirilla knew what he meant. Did he really just want to save his mother? Satsuki, hearing this, picked him up in her arms, saying that in such cases, you need to rely on your comrade. He asked her what she was going to do now. And she replied that it wasn't a bad idea, but even her friends didn't support her. The girl rushed forward down the stairs, saying that even when he was sleeping, she was tired of being in the background all the time. He still asked her to let him go. But by this time, they had already arrived at their destination, and everyone there, the older comrades, had seen what was happening. The man who had just recently bullied him, shocked by what he had seen, asked him if he was ashamed. The hero replied that he was very ashamed. The elder, who had recently been very angry with him, had a very pitiful look. He understood him. But they found a way to move without spending mana. Confused, Will said that he would make sure that he never needed such a method of movement again. They all went inside the building with their seniors. The seniors took all the seats, so Will's team was left standing. There was a girl sitting on one of the chairs. She was the mayor of Norben, and she was glad they had come. As far as she could tell, they were all here to get the quest for the stoneworms. The man pointed at the people behind him with a grin and said that, by the way, they were E-rank newbies, unlike his team, which consisted of experienced D-rank adventurers. And he thought that she understood everything herself, so she can pretend she didn't see the newbies and give double pay to the more experienced team. Mie noted that his sense of humor was even worse than William's. The girls were clearly angry at what they heard. Cirilla, standing next to the hero, tugged at his sleeve, saying that they had to show themselves well and definitely beat that team. But he didn't understand why at all. After all, this was a real test for adventurers. He stepped forward, saying that although they had less experience, they had knowledge about the rockworms and their weaknesses. Hearing this, the mayor turned to the elders, asking about them, if they had any information. The one who was bullying them called his comrade, and he, trying to explain somehow, said things that were too banal. That they looked like giant worms, lived mostly in caves, and were quite strong. The mayor interrupted him, saying that she understood and that was enough, and turned to the hero, asking him to tell her everything he knew. The hero said that the stoneworm is a monster that lives in mines and rocks. Its body reaches 5 miles in length, but can be larger. Earthworms move underground and feed on it, while rockworms can move through rocks and feed on them. They can also attack by spewing acid from their mouths. In addition, his body itself is hard as a rock, making it difficult to harm with cheap weapons. His monster rank is D or higher if he is larger than normal. The mayor realized that he was aware and told him that he could stop. She said that it was now clear which of them was truly interested in the mission. However, she would like both groups to take the mission, since they were discovered in several tunnels at once. The exact number of targets is unknown. In this case, the reward will depend on the number of stoneworms destroyed. She hopes they don't tarnish the adventurer's reputation. The healer was filled with joy just looking at their faces. It was a wonderful performance, and he did a good job. The girls complimented him excessively. He wondered if they had complimented him like that before. At this point, they were already inside some kind of shaft. With such ceilings in this cave, their older comrades would be cramped, although Satsuki's sword would also get stuck if she swung it over her head. But the main problem with the stoneworms is that they can appear suddenly. One of the girls noticed that Cirilla was quite strange, and she asked her if she was okay. She said that everything was fine, and she was of sound mind. At this time, their older comrades were also moving around some cave. The one who had recently quarreled with the hero's squad was indignant, since it was cramped inside. He was also angry because they were looked at as if they were worse than Will. And it's all because their mage had embarrassed them in front of a client. One of the guys asked him why he hadn't answered the question himself. But he was sure that gathering information was work. That's why that guy was able to answer it. They were just lucky. Another comrade was sure that he was 100 just lucky. After all, there are many types of monsters in this world, and now imagine that someone would remember all this. He does not think that even a college graduate would know all this. Suddenly, everything around shook, and everyone became agitated, because the tremors were very close, and they did not understand where they were coming from. Suddenly, the magician screamed, and everyone turned their attention to him. It turns out he forgot to use the warning spell. It's a spell that tells you when a monster is within a 50 m radius. Everyone wondered why he forgot to use it. Also, if he doesn't save his mana for attack spells, he can be considered useless. At that moment, the wall behind him collapsed, and a rather huge worm appeared from there, which, opening its mouth, showed many teeth. The men were frightened and screamed. The worm was heading towards them. They didn't understand how this monster could be a D rank. The mage called for everyone to calm down, because this monster wasn't that fast. To which their commander shouted at him that in that case he should go forward and conjure a wall. At that moment, the worm released its acid, which spilled around them and burned even the stone. Everyone was in complete shock. The magician, himself in a panic, told the chief that he could easily dodge it himself and wished him luck. The elder got angry, asking him if he really thought that it was only their problem. But if they retreat, they will lose to Will, whom they hate so much. Hearing this, the captain grabbed his weapon and went forward, telling the others to cover him. They just silently wished him luck. The hero's team was already in a calmer situation at the moment. His warning spell had detected someone ahead, to the right, below. The girl wondered if it was a stoneworm. Most likely, it was, since there was a very large response of mana. But Mia, using her ears, could not tell anything for sure, since the sound was too diffuse. In that case, Will decided to use the see-through spell. Using this spell, as he thought, he saw a worm in the lower right corner which was approaching them. He would use support magic, and then change his position to where it would be easier to attack. His team also wished him luck. After all, this man was the best graduate of the Institute of Witchcraft. They stood, their weapons raised towards the worm. The question arose whether it was crawling towards them because it knew they were there, or how it knew that. Even Will did not know. Perhaps he can sense the magical trace that comes from them. At this moment, he was already approaching them. As soon as he said this, a worm emerged from the ground and headed towards them. The hero used lightning strike magic and hit the target. At the same moment, another team of adventurers watched the worm crawling towards them. They heard a sound similar to lightning. The squad leader shouted to everyone to come to their senses quickly and attack the worm from a distance. His team did just that. One of them took the blades in his hands and aimed them at the worm, but his shell was too hard and couldn't be penetrated. Then they asked the next member of the squad to start attacking, but he couldn't because there was too little space. The commander thought that they were all too useless. The magician then used a magic arrow spell, hitting the worm, and for a second it had some effect, and the worm began to move strangely, but it turned out that this only made it even more angry. The worm began to approach them even faster. Then the commander decided to act independently and, taking his weapon in the form of an axe in his hands, he himself ran towards the worm. He gave him one blow, but it also had no effect, and the worm threw the man aside so that he flew into the wall. It was very painful. The team had no idea what to do with him. But the commander was clearly dissatisfied with his team's conclusion. He shouted that they could beat him. They just had to try. They might be rotten, but they were still a D-rank adventurer team. At the very least, they can't just run away from a mission of this rank. They have to do it. At the same time, William's other team silently watched the last movements of the magic-affected worm. He left the rest to Satsuki, telling her to finish the worm. She didn't quite understand why, since it was already practically dead. But she will do it. He said that it is, but if he comes to his senses, he can interfere with them. So she needs to finish him off while he is weak. The girl, hearing this, went forward and cut the worm into 2 parts. The enchanted sword passed through the worm very easily, as if through butter. But they didn't understand if this was really the whole task, and they didn't have to do anything else. They actually completed all the requirements. The rest is just for the extra reward. Because they're not sure there are more than one. In any case, they have enough strength left. Then they can move on. But the healer did not understand their enthusiasm. Seeing her face, they asked her if everything was all right. She confirmed that everything was fine, although it was clear from her face that this was far from the case. 10 minutes later, they defeated another worm. 20 minutes later, another one. In total, they had already defeated 3 monsters. Cerelia wondered if there weren't too many of them. Will agreed with her. They had encountered too many of them in such a short time. Mia wondered how many individuals they were moving in a group. The thought of a colony of rockworms made Cerelia shudder. As far as he knew, if there were several of them in one place, they moved alone and in groups of 2 or 3. It was hard for them to move in large groups through the rocks, but they had already met 3. It looked like there were a few more of them here, but the mana was already running out. They needed to go back and report everything. Cerelia was happy to hear this. Mia asked if they would come back here again, and the hero answered, of course. In that case, everyone agreed to retreat. A little late. In the mining town of Norvin, 2 people, a man and a woman, were walking around the town. The guy was talking about hearing that there was a group of 3 girls here, all beauties. The girl walking next to him confirmed Mr. Gurin's words, but added that there was a man traveling with them as well. Gurin didn't understand why Cecilia was angry. But who wouldn't get angry when her beloved thinks about other girls? Can she at least be jealous? This is exactly the trait the guy loved about her. There was a hotel not far from them, and he would like her as a snack. At this time, the adventurers arrived back at the building to see the mayor. She heard their report and was extremely surprised that they had defeated 3 monsters in a short period of time. The other team, who were pretty battered after fighting 1 worm, were also surprised that the others were somehow able to defeat 3. William's team noticed how exhausted they were, and they were shocked by it. The mayor said after the statement that she needs time to think about it, and if that's all, she would like to ask them to come back tomorrow. She is not insisting, but she would be very grateful if they made their decision after hearing her story. The hero agreed, saying that they would come to her tomorrow. She thanked them and asked the other team what about them. The commander of the other squad, trembling, clearly wanted to refuse, but said that they would come too. At that moment, Cerelia approached the rivals. She wanted to help them, but they refused, saying that everything was fine, they just needed to rest. Then Satsuki asked them if maybe they shouldn't risk their lives like that, and the other team leader agreed with her. When they left the mayor's building and went outside, it was already too late. Satsuki was very hungry after the mission and asked the others if they needed a snack. Siri agreed with her and asked what their earnings were today. It turned out that they got 120 gold. Mia felt like they were getting richer. Cerelia wanted to buy something interesting with that money, and Satsuki just wanted to eat something interesting. William told them that sometimes it was okay to treat yourself. The girls, pleased with these words, moved forward with enthusiasm. They arrived at the establishment having ordered a lot of different dishes. The decoration there was very cute. Satsuki was happy with the large amount of meat on the table, and Mia was happy with the drinks. They chatted happily, sitting at the table of the establishment. The healer noted that it would be even better if Mrs. Eileen were with them. The hero agreed with her, because Eileen was a friend to him, an adventurer. Hearing William's words, the three girls turned their attention to him, telling him to admit how he looks at Mrs. Eileen. Mia asked, "What, has he already figured it out?" Pretending that he doesn't. He didn't understand who they were talking about. Then Satsuki said that it was the princess. After that, he looked away, apparently reluctant to talk about it. Satsuki asked if he looked at her not as a childhood friend but as a girl. He asked them to calm down for a minute. He had never given importance to gender, and only recently had she emphasized it. Hearing this, the girls were extremely disappointed. They felt sorry for Eileen. So they decided to move on with their food and not bring up the topic anymore. The same couple who had just recently discussed them on the city street came into the establishment. They noticed the squad's table. At that moment, Cerelia was thinking that she needed to send a letter to Eileen and ask her to wear a dress next time. The guy who came up to the table leaned over and said that at first he thought about having dinner with them, but nevertheless suggested that the girls have some fun that night, calling them beauties. The girls at the table looked at him disapprovingly after these words. It was a rather expensive establishment, but apparently such guys are everywhere. They told him to go back where he came from. After all, he clearly lacks common sense. He sat down on the sofa next to the girls like he owned the place. Life is terribly monotonous and boring, to be nice, and he will do what he wants. They clearly had different views on this. Satsuki, hearing these words, stood up and said that in that case she would also do whatever she wanted, and immediately raised her fist to strike. The guy's companion, seeing this, called out to Mr. Gorin, but it was too late. The girl stopped her fist a few centimeters from the young man's face. He just laughed at this sight, saying that she was his type. She still didn't understand why he didn't dodge. It made her angry. But why would he dodge if she wasn't even going to hit him? He grabbed Satsuki's arm, pulling her up. She was clearly in pain. Her face showed it. The girls who saw it were panicking, and Will was angry. He ordered the guy to stop all this. He actually let go of the girl's hand, and asked him who Will was to them. Was he really their boyfriend? The hero remained silent to this because it was absurd. He did not know what to answer. Then the young man said that his girls lacked upbringing, and this again put William into a stupor. He didn't quite understand what he was talking about. Was it because of the difference in their cultures? After that, Gorin lost interest in them, telling them to go away. They were very angry at these statements. After that, Mie grabbed the girls by the hands and led them away. The hero followed the girls, although he was not going to fulfill his demands, but now he needed to spend time with his friends. He approached the waiter, saying that the man in black would pay the entire bill. The gentleman did not understand whether they were really friends, but he himself had told them so. But it seemed more like a joke. The healer asked Satsuki to show her her hand so she could heal her. The girl was very sad. She considered herself weak because she lost to the princess today. And I just lost to this man. She pulled her hand back, thanking her friend, but she didn't need her help because she was fine. She'd better go back to the hotel. The girls just watched her go silently. Mia also left after her. To think that Satsuki would become depressed. When failures pile up or when things don't go as planned, it's very hard to accept and self-esteem drops dramatically. Even William understood this. The girl standing next to him looked at him strangely upon hearing these words. It seemed that she had experienced this herself too. She suggested that the guy go to another hotel, but it sounded suspicious to him. But it turns out she wanted it because if she went to sleep there, she would dream about that man from the restaurant. They clearly didn't want that. In that case, they need to get drunk and then sleep will be easy, and tomorrow they will pamper her to cheer her up. They decided not to console her, but to pamper her. They think it will work. Mayor's residences. The girl read some documents but did not believe their contents. What she learned from there was that the city of Norfin was doomed. A great disaster was approaching the city.